Series count for the music person?
Welcome again to City Hall. This is now a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council. It is 10:10 a.m. Today, November 20th, the year is 2001. City Council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. or as close to it as possible. We can be seen live at home from your cable station, Channel 35, viewed via webcast from the city's homepage, or heard via council phone. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bernson, Galanter, Garcetti, Hahn, Holden, Labange, Miskowski, Pacheco, Perry, Reyes, Fairley Thomas, Weiss, Stein, and Padilla. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. If I can ask everybody to please rise and ask Mr. Cliff Ruff from our Police Protective League to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, first order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Reyes moves and Mr. Weiss seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Labange moves and Mr. Garcetti seconds.
Before starting the regular agenda, there's a couple items to be continued or addressed. Item number 1, a request from the applicant in Council District 13 to continue that matter till December 14th.
Request to continue item number 1 without objection.
Items numbers 3, 4, and 7, request from the Building and Safety Department to receive and file these matters inasmuch as the property owners are now in compliance.
Members request to receive and file items 3, 4, and 7, also without objection.
Item number 37, the Planning Department requests a continuance to December 11th.
Number 37, members, without objection, that shall be continued.
And item number 45, a request from Council District, it's in Council District 1, to comply with the CRA notice of hearing. This matter needs to be continued one day.
Members, item number 45, without objection, continued until tomorrow.
On the regular agenda, items numbers 2 through 8, with the exception of 3, 4, and 7, are items noticed for public hearing.
Items 2 through 8 now before us. I do not have requests from members of the public to speak on these items. We shall deem the public hearings open and closed. Members wishing to speak on items 2 through 8. Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please open the roll on items 2, 5, 6, and 8. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Next item, please.
Mr. President, items numbers 9 through 20 on the regular agenda are items for which public hearings have been held.
Members, items 9 through 20, any specials? Any specials on items 9 through 20? Mr. Holden calls item number 18 specials. Any other specials? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please open the roll on the balance of the items. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved. Forthwith on 17.
And a request for forthwith on 18.
Item 18 has been called special. Item 9 as well. Forthwith on item 9. Next item, please.
Items numbers 21 through 35 on the regular agenda are items for which public hearings have not been held.
Items 21 through 35 now before us. Do not have requests from members of the public to speak on these items. Members, any specials? Ms. Hahn calls 22 special. Mr. Garcetti calls 32 special. Any other specials? Members, items 21 through 35. Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please open the roll on the balance of the items. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved. Forthwith on 21, please. Next item, please.
Próximo asunto, por
Items
favor.
numbers 36 through 56 on the supplemental agenda are items for which public hearings have been held. Item number 37 and 45 have been addressed.
Ya se han llevado.
Item 36 through 56. The public hearings have been held. We do have cards on item number 51. A motion from the floor will be needed to reopen the public hearing. Members, any specials?
¿Alguna especial?
Mr. Holden.
El señor Holden.
Through 50. That's okay, Mr. President.
Está bien, señor presidente.
Members, any specials?
¿Alguna especial?
Items 36 through
Asunto 36 al
56.
56.
I believe we need to call item 36 special.
36 especial.
I know, I was like.
Any other specials?
¿Algún otro especial?
Items 37 through 56 now. Actually, 38 through 56 with the exception of 45. Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please open the roll on the balance of the items.
El balance de los asuntos.
Close the roll.
Ciérrese la lista.
Tabulate the vote.
Tabúlese el voto.
13 ayes.
13
Those
sí.
are approved.
Están aprobados.
Next item, please.
Items numbers 57 through 63 on the supplemental agenda are items for which public hearings have not been held.
Items 57 through 63 now before us. I do have cards on item 57. Let's call that special. Mr. Holden.
Señor Holden.
60 and 61, I call it special.
Mr. Holden calls 59, 60, and 61.
60 y 61.
63 called special by
63
Ms.
llamado
Hahn.
especial por la señora Han.
Any other
¿Algún
specials?
otro especial?
Mr. Ridley Thomas.
Señor Willy
Mr.
Thomas,
President,
señor
if you would
presidente,
instruct the clerk, that is Mr. Conrad,
el señor Conrad,
forthwith on item number 52, I'd
el
appreciate it.
52.
Forthwith on item 52,
Para
please.
adelante en el 52.
Mr. Garcetti called 62 special. We have item
Tenemos
58
asunto
left before us.
enfrente de
Anybody wishing to
nosotros.
call that special?
¿Alguien quiere llamar ese especial?
If not, Mr. Clerk, please open the roll on
Ciérrese la
item number
lista en el
58.
asunto 58.
Close the roll.
Ciérrese la lista.
Tabulate the vote.
Tabúlese el voto.
13 ayes.
13 sí.
Item 58 is approved
Asunto 58 está
forthwith on that.
aprobado.
Next item, please.
Próximo asunto.
Items numbers 64 and 65 are closed session items. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
Let's hold closed session on the desk.
First closed session item called is item number 18 by Councilmember Holden.
Sesión cerrada. Seamos por el señor Holden.
Mr. Holden, item number 18.
Asunto
Mr. President,
Señor
members,
presidente, miembros.
I was just concerned about when
Preocupado de
the
cuando
mayor would perhaps make a final appointment. I think the national search for general manager, what's the status of that search? And whether or not this time extension is going to be sufficient, or whether or not they need additional time before they decide who's going to be the general manager of ITA.
que lo maneje el ATA.
Just a question.
Nomás una pregunta.
Maybe they did not anticipate the fact that we're going to call it special, they're not here, so you can move on and hold it at the desk,
Pueden
Mr.
salir
President.
adelante y
can
detengan
hold
el
it at the
escritorio.
desk. I
Lo podemos
believe,
detener en el escritorio. Creo que
Mr. Mozingo is here.
eso está aquí.
Maybe Mr. Deaton can tell us on item
A lo mejor no nos puede
18.
decir. Necesito
On ITA, the general manager, I mean, this extension you're asking for, when do you think they're going to have it? They have a national search, number one. Number two is that when you think it'll be, CAO maybe, when this is going to be concluded, and when you think we'll be selecting a permanent general manager? And why the delay?
I'm aware they are in a national search at the present time. I would assume that they would, by the conclusion of this period of time, that they will have a recommendation.
CAO maybe?
Actually, Personnel Department is the one
Well,
involved.
he used to be general manager personnel. He knows everything. I expect the CLA to do it, but, you know, that's okay. You can,
My comments are the same as Ron. I believe this next...
I know that's a disappointment for
this next time
industry.
period, this next extension is, would be sufficient.
well, you didn't answer the question. Moving sufficient, what does that mean?
That they'll have a permanent appointment prior to the end of this next extension.
Oh, you will?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Mr. Deaton could have told us that.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. We have a recommendation for the extension before us. Mr. Zine.
Señor Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. We heard this in
Oímos esto
Information Technology, Mayor's representative did address the question and the issue. The current acting general manager does not wish to remain. He's going to retire. So that was fully discussed, and there was representation by the mayor's office explaining the process that they're going through. So we would move approval of this.
Thank you very much. Other members wishing to be heard? Seeing none. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
That is approved. Forthwith on that. Next item, please.
Item number 22, called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Item 22, Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues. I'm sure this is one of those items that would have gone through very quickly, but I'd like to take the opportunity to rise and just really support the Wilmington Business Improvement District. And this is only their second year in existence. And since they have been in operation, they've already contracted out for maintenance of downtown Wilmington. They're planning planners along downtown Wilmington. They're really sprucing up the business district. And what I like about the Wilmington commercial district is that they don't rely solely on just these kinds of funds. They're actually applying for city matching funds, for beautification funds. So they're really, they're a brand new business improvement district in Los Angeles. They have felt for so long that they have been neglected by the city. So I'm really proud of them. And why are you laughing, Mr. City Clerk? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. So I just thought it was a great opportunity to praise the business owners in Wilmington for really, in my opinion, I only have one other example of a business improvement district in my district.
Yes, you do.
A little tenuous. So this one, I wanted to take the opportunity to praise them and say, I hope you will all vote yes on continuing their contract. Would you like to say something, Mr.
No, this is my
Mayor?
hometown, so I urge approval.
Other members wishing to be heard? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
That is approved. Forthwith on 22, please. Next item.
Item number 32, called special by Councilmember Garcetti.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a question for staff. CRA is here. Just this, colleagues, would extend the Hollywood interim control ordinance on signage to make sure that as we come up with guidelines for Hollywood and proper signage, that nothing else is done. I just want to know what the holdup may be and when we can expect. I know if we go through this extension of 180 days, whether or not we're going to need all 180 days or whether we can expect something sooner.
Yes, Councilman, I'm Mike LeGrand from the City Planning Department. We're currently working on developing the supplemental use district. We have a document that we've been waiting for from the Community Redevelopment Agency that has design for development standards in it that we're incorporating into our document. So we do anticipate the completion of this and bringing it back to council within the 180 days. And there is a hardship exemption that's written into the interim control ordinance so that if in the interim time there's any hardships, that there's a process for them to go through as a relief valve that is built in.
Right. There's a citywide, in the meantime, I know there's been a very good process in Hollywood that's actually brought together design, folks looking at historical signage, unique signage, making sure that we don't just slap a bunch of billboards, but, and I know it's not used to the CRA right now, but as much as we can move that process along, I think it will be incumbent upon us not to use all 180 days. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Other members wishing to be heard? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
That is approved. Forthwith on that. Next item, please.
Item number 36, called special by Councilmember Garcetti.
Item 36, called special. Let's begin with the staff presentation before we begin discussion. Please introduce yourselves.
Yes, Mr. President, my council members, my name is David Wiggs, and I'm the current General Manager, Department of Water and Power. With me is Henry Martinez, who is an Assistant General Manager in charge of our power supply. And of course, you know Mr. Deaton. We are here today to ask the council to approve a settlement with Salt River Project to sell half of our current interest in Mojave. The settlement would provide that DWP keeps its current 50% of its current ownership, or about 150 megawatts, and sells the other 150 megawatts. Just a very brief history of the plant so you can get some perspective. This plant was built and in commercial operation in 1971. The department owns 20%, or about 316 megawatts of the plant. In October 6th of 1999, the plant entered into an agreement to install certain pollution control equipment that will reduce the SO2 by 80%, the NOx by 25 to 40%, and other environmental additions to be completed by January 2006. In May of 2000, Southern Cal Edison, one of the participants, agreed to sell its participation in the plant. Again, in May, Nevada agreed to sell their interest. In August of 2000, this council and the DWP board agreed to sell their interest in the Mojave plant to AES. Shortly after that, Salt River Project exercised their right of first refusal and stepped in to buy our portion of the plant. Later, both Nevada and California passed laws that prohibited Salt River and Nevada from selling their interest. There's been a lot of changes occur over the last year, and since that time, we have negotiated with Salt River to retain half our interest and sell half our interest. There are really three alternatives. It is to approve the settlement, that is to go forward and complete the full sale of the unit to Salt River, or go forward with arbitration or litigation and try to retain 100% ownership. It's the department's management position, its board of commissioners, the mayor, CLA, and CAO's position that this council should approve the settlement that we are proposing today. There's a number of reasons, but it gets down to really, in our view and in my view, a question of reliability and cost. There's a lot of changes have occurred over the last year, and in the reliability side, the participants in our other project, Coal Project in Utah, have recalled some of their power, 50 megawatts, and they can recall up to 200 megawatts more. We've had a delay in one of our in-basin construction projects on Valley of about 536 megawatts. It's been delayed from June 2003 to April 2004. In other words, we are missing our peak period, and we've increased our load forecast during this period of time. None of these alternatives are risk-free. This is clearly a balancing act between reliability, cost, and environmental issues. But given everything that's occurred over the last couple of years, and still the very uncertain state of this energy market, you still have the state contracts that are up in the air, you have gas prices that while they are low today, I cannot tell you they will be low next week or next year. You have issues still with PG&E and Edison, you've got national energy issues, you've got conservation issues and what the long-term impact will be, and of course we have weather issues we can't totally predict. In my opinion, as a general manager of the department, the most prudent, conservative alternative is to approve this settlement. This plant provides low-cost power at about 2 cents. It's reliable. It's been running at about 75% capacity factor. And you know, one of the reasons that DWP has been so successful over the last few years is that by the foresight of this council and Mr. Deaton and others holding in years past, we have held on to and controlled our destiny. We control our generation, we control our transmission, and you control the rates. In my opinion, again, the bottom line is that for us to accomplish our mission, which is very clean and very clear, we need to provide reliable power, we need to provide it at stable rates, and we need to keep the city transfer stable. In this time frame particularly, I think the department needs to stay rock solid on those commitments. And our best opportunity to complete that mission and successfully do it is with this settlement. I'd rather be here a year from now explaining to you why we may have a little surplus capacity than explaining to you why we have reliability issues or asking you for rate adjustments or cutting the city transfer. I would not do that, and this is no, I say I would rather not be in that position, and I think this...
We're going to have council member question and discussion after
Okay,
this
I'm sorry.
presentation.
I also want to assure the council in going forward that if you approve this settlement, again, this doesn't mean we can't and will not continue to evaluate our position in these power plants, this one as well as others, each year as you go forward. As some of this market clears up, as you have a better handle on gas prices, as a lot happens over the next 2 or 3 years, we still have the opportunity to reevaluate our ownership in this plant. But for the next few years, I clearly believe it's in our best interest and the prudent thing to do to hold on to that power and to approve this settlement. I think we have a book that we can go through in great detail, Mr. President, any answers, but I think at this point I would ask the council to approve the settlement and allow us to go forward and complete this transaction with Salt River.
Mr. D.
Mr. President, members of the council, I wholeheartedly support the department's position. Let's kind of divide the issues. There has been a question about the environment as it relates to this coal plant. There are going to be changes made by regulation. I believe that the speed at which those things are done can be better affected by us being involved and not being involved. But bottom line is that it will be no worse or no better, no worse if we're involved, and it could be worse. No better if, let me rephrase this. The situation will not be any worse if we are involved or not involved. We're not involved, because there are going to be certain regulations or certain things. If we're involved, we can make it happen quicker, perhaps. On the reliability issue, what the department's numbers are showing is that for the next 2 to 3 years, that the reserve requirements that you run a power system on without Mojave, we will drop below. There are some real threats to providing that same amount of power from various parts of our sources of power that could be pulled away from us, and we would be required to go on the open market. If you recall this summer, if this summer had not been a cool summer, it was difficult many, many days, and the Department of Water and Power on many of those days was the difference between this state having enough power and not having enough power. We were pumping water up in Castaic to be able to bring it down when it was peaking. Otherwise, there would not have been enough power to meet the requirements of the state of California. Second, on cost. During this last crisis, Mr. Wiggs has indicated that the cost of power for Mojave during this entire period is someplace between 2 and 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour. On the spot market, it got as high as $7 per kilowatt hour. What, 40 times as much? So for our constituents in the city of Los Angeles who have enjoyed during this entire period of time low-cost, reliable power, not to do this, I believe, puts that in jeopardy. And there is no real good reason to do so. And hence, I recommend very strongly support of the department's position.
Mr. Mr. President, just one other thing I did want to mention is that the department's commitment by keeping half of this Mojave plant certainly doesn't change our commitment to renewables and pursuing renewables. The department's goal is to satisfy 1/2 of our load growth with renewables or conservation efforts, which over the next 20 years can amount to 1,000 megawatts that would be replaced by demand-side management and by renewables. We are on schedule. We are committed to continue that. And as this market develops more, we can even do more on that. But they are still costly, and they are not a substitute at this point in time for good, solid base load generation at that 2.5-cent level. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Fujioka?
I don't have much to add other than to voice our support for this proposed agreement to maintain a partial ownership of this facility, but to sell our remaining the other 10%. But we fully support the department's position in this matter.
Thank you very much. Anything else from the staff?
Yes, I just want to add one point. This is Henry Martinez, Assistant General Manager. We do have a deadline to meet. The agreements that we have made with SRP on this particular project is to conclude negotiations and approval by City Council by November 30th. And this is sold to in a process of averting any kind of arbitration or legal action to be provided by either party. So urgency and timeliness definitely at stake right now.
Thank you. I have a number of members wishing to speak. The chair of the committee first, Ms. Galanter.
Thank you, Mr. President. The item comes before the council without recommendation, and the reason for that is that the committee hearing this morning, there were only two of us present, Mr. Padilla and myself, and we did not agree with one another. Mr. Padilla felt that we should approve this settlement of a lawsuit, and I felt and continue to feel that the City of Los Angeles should stick to its commitments, and the commitments I heard Mr. Wiggs say a few minutes ago that we're sticking to our by reneging on our commitment to sell our full interest in Mojave. We're adhering to our commitment to maintain low energy rates here at home. Now, I'm all for low energy rates here at home, but I just want you to remember the history of how we got to where we are today. The council adopted a plan a little over a year ago that would have allowed us to sell our interest, divest ourselves of being a part of one of the dirtiest plants in the country, one of the dirtiest coal plants in the country. Whether we are part of it or not, the coal plant is going to have to get cleaned up. The federal and state regulators are going to insist on an investment. If we're in it, we will pay our share of that investment. If we're not in it, somebody else will pay. Well, on the settlement that they're proposing now, let me just go through the history, Hal, and I'll get to that. We started with a 20% ownership in this plant. So when we talk about 100% of our share, it's 20% of the plant. We agreed to sell it. We then decided not to sell it, and we were sued by the potential buyer. We have already paid $3.8 million for failing to go through with the agreement that we originally agreed to go through with. That $3.8 million is gone, but the buyer has graciously agreed to keep the $3.8 million and let us retain 10%, half of our share, which will give us a 10% stake in the you heard the city staff arguing that our being there will somehow improve the conscience of those at the plant. It isn't going to make any difference. The regulators are going to make the plant clean up whether we're there or we're not there. It's only a question whether we're going to pay to clean up the air out of state or whether we're going to invest money in state to generate clean power here. So I think there are several problems. We made a commitment, which we're now backing out of. We're doing what's before us today is a proposal to settle a lawsuit that was created by our backing out of a commitment. We were going to lose. We already lost the $3.8 million. We have jobs to create here at home. We have environmentally more sound ways to generate power. We do have a potential time problem, as Mr. Deaton pointed out. But my concern is that historically we have always backed away from our urgent problems by taking the easy way out. The easy way out is the environmentally dirty way. It's cheaper in the short run. We all know that if you want to invest in environmentally beneficial, sustainable technology, there's a big upfront investment. You make it back over time, but there is an investment up front. Most of the coal plants that we're involved in, we got involved in the 70s because Middle Eastern oil was very iffy indeed and very high priced. Certainly the situation in the Middle East and elsewhere is a little iffy right now as well. But we have always backed off and said, well, we better run for the cheapest, quickest, most, the one we know about. And the one we know about is the dirty one. So I am going to move that we go through with the original deal and ask the department to execute the necessary waiver to complete that original deal, which is to sell our share. Our residents have proven they can conserve if you ask them to and you show them how. We've done very well at that. We can do better. So that's my motion.
Thank you, Ms. Galanter. Mr. Burnson. Mr. Burnson.
Yes, when we originally approved this, it was presented to this council by your predecessor that we had a surplus, that we didn't need this power, but more important, that the money was going to be used to improve and update 2 existing plants and convert those to gas, to clean gas production to augment our availability here for DWP. Now, I don't know what happened to that plan, and I don't recall us ever, I know you've been sued and you're already out $3.8 million. I don't recall, did the council ever take an action to rescind this deal?
No, let me explain.
Well, on what basis? I don't want you to take my time, because I've got some things to say, then you can answer. First of all, I think Ruth has a point. If the presentation that was made to us then, when we were selling surplus power to everybody, why are all, and I understand the fact that we had a cool summer, but all of a sudden it's being presented to us that we're going to need this power, which before you didn't need it all. Now, you know, I don't know what the cost is going to be of the cleanup on this, but I presume it's going to be substantial. And I think that that's going to change the cost of the power that we get from there. It's not going to be the 2.5 cents that you're presenting to us. So at any rate, I think that, you know, I'm very big on commitments. If we made a commitment, we ought to be able to go through with it, and we ought to be able to use those funds to clean up some of the potential plants that are not being used now, except in emergency basis, and convert those to very, very clean natural gas. So I'm just wondering why we are going through, why do we have this change? And who had the authority to make the decision not to go through with the sale when it was authorized by the City Council? Number 2, what is the cost of the cleanup going to be? Has anybody presented that to us, and how that's going to affect the cost of this power? I have a lot of questions about this, and I'm not prepared. And I know you got a deadline on this, but, you know, today is the 20th. And you waited till, you know, I'm surprised you didn't wait till the 29th to bring this to us with a 30th deadline. And maybe you can answer some of my questions.
I might, if I could. One is that the situation was that AES, as the department explained, was the one we had the contract for. The contract provided for the $3 million if another member of the people who own Mojave exercised their first right of refusal. Salt River Project did so, and as a result, we owed, because of that contract, $3 million to AES. This is not, it wasn't because we reneged. They have no right under the rules, and they knew it when they signed the contract, that if another agency, Salt River Project, or Nevada Power exercised their right, AES was out of the picture. We signed the contract that if they did that, we would pay AES $3 million. No, it wasn't, but that's not the only thing that wasn't smart. The other thing is you talk about the surplus. The surplus depended upon us, in my view, providing getting a lot of capital projects done on the very projects you're talking about on an unrealistic schedule. It didn't happen, and it's not going to happen, and that's why we have this kind of a problem between now and the next 2 to 3 years. Excuse me?
Perdón.
That power came from Mojave, from our 20%. It came from firing up Valley. It came up from firing up power plants all over the basin that we would not have normally done because they are not as clean as you correctly point out. And we have enough. I think that if, with all due respect, the CLA report did say, and the CLA report did say
Who reads what you
something.
print?
I know that's a problem, Mr. Burnson, but at this point in the game, you should have. Second, in any event, the fact that because of what has happened, this was all done prior to this crisis. We weren't looking statewide at the kind of problem we are looking at, and the only agency that came out of this correctly was, and with their head above water, was the Department of Water and Power.
What is our share of the cost of the cleanup going to be? Can you tell us that?
$50 to $70 million. And as I said in committee this morning, if you wait on selling it, and wait 2 to 3 years, I'll come out of retirement, and all I want is 1%, and I'll be a millionaire, because we'll make more money on this in a couple of years than we'll ever think about doing that at this point. Also, because of some of the things, in response to your question as far as cleanup and redoing the things, the plants in the basin, because a lot of things that this council has done over the last 10 years, there is more than sufficient cash flow to make all those changes and to do all those things now. And if you want more money for it, you don't sell.
If the money's been there, why haven't we done it?
We are in the process of trying to do it. It just couldn't be done on the schedule that was presented to you when this was first done. Also, Mojave will produce enough cash flow that if you want to do those things, want to put more money into those things, use the money from Mojave to do that. Then you do 3 things. One is you provide for reliability, you provide your constituents lower cost power, and 3, you provide a cash flow to do the kinds of environmental cleanups that you're talking about. I can't hear you, Mr. Burns.
Are we going to recover enough money from Mojave to pay for our share of the
Absolutely, absolutely, and then a lot more. Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes.
One of the bottom lines I'm hearing from staff is that this is an effort to keep our bills low for our constituents during hard times and during good times. 2 is that, if I'm hearing this correctly, by staying in this development, this deal, that we will have more discretion in trying to clean it up. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay,
I think that's a fair statement.
On the other hand, the other message that could come from this is that we're choosing to go down the road where we have maintained this trend of keeping with coal and therefore sustaining a resource, a fuel resource that is polluting our environment. I mean, those are the 2 sides to this issue. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think, as I said, it's definitely a balancing act between staying in a plant that is clearly not as clean as a gas plant, but being cleaned up and giving us the best chance to keep our rates stable and our reliability where it should be.
Well, given the resources that we do have currently available to us, are we not in a position to have alternative means by which we can generate power that doesn't have to rely on coal?
Yes, and what this council approved is the integrated resource plan that the department is implementing. As Mr. Deaton said, there's just been some delays, and particularly in the construction of one particular project, the Valley Generating Station, that's 530 megawatts. It's been delayed for over 9 months, which pushes it back past some periods where we need the power. And again, Mr. Bernstein said that there's been some changes too, in that we've had some power recalled from Utah that wasn't anticipated back when this was first presented to you. And we also have relooked at our load forecast, and it looks like it could be a little bit more growth over this period of time. So in the long run, we probably could do without the 150 megawatts. But in the next 2 or 3 years, I am saying to you, the department and Mr. Deaton and others, that there is a risk that we could be short, and I don't believe it's a prudent thing to do given the circumstances.
See, one of my sense of discomfort, if you will, is that I just got this report right now. We're dealing with many items in council today, and these are very critical issues. What messages are we giving to our future generations to rely on coal? On the other hand, are you being able to mitigate it to the point where it's not an issue? And those are answers that I haven't. I hear what you're saying, but I haven't been able to digest this and to understand the impacts of these decisions.
Well, and I understand, and I'm sorry, we've moved this as fast as we can, and I'm sorry we couldn't get more information to you sooner. We're going through the committee, and this just has been occurring. I do want to clear up a couple of things real quickly. There is no lawsuit. There's been no suit about anything. This has simply been negotiations to avoid future arbitration. So there's no lawsuit right now. And again, the 3.8 had nothing to do with anything unless getting out or not getting out. That was paid. That was paid because the contract provided for that. And again, I would say to the council very clearly, there is no easy answer here. All of these will have some risk going forward, and all of them have trade-offs. But for us to do what you need us to do, we have the best chance of accomplishing that by hanging on to this 50%, 150 megawatts, at least for the next few years. And that's really why we're here.
Just given the role we play on this stage, we play a significant role given the impacts we have on our environment, plus how you're looking out as stewards of our constituents. I just think we deserve a little bit more time to understand this, knowing that you're pressured with your time frames for the decision you have to make. So I would appreciate if we had that ability and be given the opportunity to understand this when we're making these big ticket item decisions.
Okay? Yes, sir.
Mr. Holden.
Mr. President, members, here we go again, listening to the general manager. When the general manager first came before us, it was a different general manager. But he was saying, sell Mojave. And then, of course, Edison tried to sell its portion, and the Public Utilities Commission said no. It doesn't serve the best interests of the consumers in the state of California, because you're required to sell your energy as needed to the people in the state of California. If Edison would own that energy, and it still does, if we sell our portion, which you tried to do previously, then the purchaser, AES at that time, could sell the energy any way they would choose to do so. And I just, on the surface, it was a stupid recommendation under the guise of cleaning up the air. Ms. Galanta, they were not going to close Mojave. They're going to increase the production in Mojave. So what the reason you given for selling it made no sense. And neither was the general manager's recommendation. It made no sense. And now, what you offer today makes no sense. Utah is going to extract some of the energy that we're not getting from them. You're already submitting to that, which means we may even need more energy. You're saying you to come back to the table and may have to ask for a rate increase. You're threatening us. The fact of the matter, the best thing to do is don't sell this, go to arbitration. The worst you can get is the original deal, the $190 million. You kicked out $3.8 million without council consent to settle a deal with AES. You didn't come to us to do that. You did it on your own free will and accord. I didn't know anything about it until you came to my office to tell me about it. Fact of the matter is that the worst case situation is that we could lose in arbitration. Well, if you lose, you're back to where you started. You get $190 million. If you win, you keep the whole 20%. The energy producing plan for the state of California, the arguments would be pretty good. I believe, given the fact that you may very well lose some of the energy coming out of Utah, which you already know about. Now you're talking about cleaning up plants into California. Gas rates going to go up. Gas producing plants going to cost more money. You're going to pass that on to the consumer anyway. I just don't understand how you can sit at this table and just change suits. All you guys sound alike and say, let's give more, take more away from the consumer, take more from the city of Los Angeles. You say, well, it's not clear to me. It should be clear to you if you're telling us to make a recommendation to sell it when we can go to arbitration and have an opportunity to save it. I talked to you and I talked to your lawyer about it. You sit at the table saying, let's sell it. Let's do this trade for a few years. The worst you can get out of arbitration that you can still have access to the whole 20% for the next 2 years, that could have been the deal. You didn't put that before the council, and that was a true fact. I say to you that, no, let's not sell you at all. Let's go to arbitration. Let's give the people of the consumers of the city of Los Angeles a fighting chance to hold on to the 20%, to correct the stupid mistake that was voted on 14-1 in this council.
Thank you,
You got that, that's right. One, stupid mistake.
13-2.
And not, oh yeah, Rita Walters voted with me.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't want to give her any credit.
That's your prerogative.
Mr. Holden. Ms.
I want
Hahn.
to give her credit. I got that back.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the council, first of all, I regret that I was unable to make the Commerce Committee meeting this morning. If I had been there, the recommendation from that committee would have been 2-1 in favor of moving forward with this agreement. You know, when we talk about police issues, Dennis Zine is the resident expert. When we talk about lawyer and attorney issues, we have those kind of people on the city council. Excuse me. But when we do talk about electric utility issues, I don't probably think there's any other council member that actually, well, no, take that back. Now we have Tom Levant, who actually came from that industry as well. But I did spend 5 years in the investor-owned utility industry and firsthand lived through the deregulation debacle that took over California. The many problems, we can second guess what happened, we can Monday morning quarterback it, but the problem existed because the investor-owned utilities were forced to divest themselves of their generation. And what happened was companies like AES bought generating stations previously owned by Edison in California, but then of course were not required to sell back to Californians, and as you remember, really took advantage of the power shortages, really took advantage of the weather, and began selling the what was previously 6 cents a kilowatt hour at upwards to 40 and 50 cents a kilowatt hour. During the power crisis, I was right in the middle of having to call city managers in cities and tell them in 30 seconds, I mean in 30 minutes, you will not have power. Start getting prepared. And the departments of transportation and all the small businesses were thrown into a disaster. Don't think that just because we are municipally owned utility that we will not be impacted by future power shortages. The power peaks are still going to be there. We are unclear. We are still having growth in California. We are not building new power plants fast enough to keep up with the load requirements. But you know, just because we live in DWP territory, many of my constituents in San Pedro are in county areas and are served by the investor-owned utility of Edison. I have a hospital in that area. I have Fort MacArthur in that area. So the power blackouts impact my constituents. Let me just say something very clear. Those who own the power win the game. We must at all costs, particularly now, hold on to any power that we own. And while I feel badly that we're part, you know, as Ms. Glander said, the dirtiest power plant, this is an opportunity for us to be a part of cleaning it up. And I'll tell you what, don't think that we did not fire up dirty power plants here in Los Angeles when that power crisis hit. Scattergood was one of them. And we were fined by the AQMD for firing up a dirty power plant to help with the excess power. So we have an opportunity, just a second, we have an opportunity to hang on to this, to clean it up, and use the money that we will make. Trust me, we will make money on this power that we own. If we could keep all of it, I wish that was a real option. But if our option is to only sell half of what we own, then we ought to take that, because we do not know the future. We need to keep independent of the power market. That is so critical right now, and this is a way to hang on it, make it cleaner, and then use that money to, and if we lost this power, we would have to replace it by building another power plant. Which of your neighborhoods wants to build another power plant?
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. D?
Just, these last two speakers, there was one other issue that I think that happened in this deregulation that's very insidious for the state of California, and Mojave is actually a good example of how trying to close the gate after the cows have gone for their walk. In Mojave, the AES was in the process of trying to buy Edison's and Nevada's and Salt River's interest in it. Nevada's PUC said, no, you're not going to sell. The California PUC told Edison that they're not going to sell. And the reason for that in both cases was that you lose control of the power to the state. When Edison and PG&E were selling out-of-state plants, what happened was not only was that they sold the power plant, but they lost the state of California lost that power directly coming to the state of California. And so we have divested ourselves as a state in this process of a lot of power that will not be available for us in times of crises.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, one of the best things that happened in the recent power crisis was that we actually met the challenge of that, partially not just by firing up dirty plants, but also by our own behavior. And let us not lose sight of the larger issues around this as we get into the specifics of Mojave, in understanding our own personal responsibilities and also our long-range thinking about how we are going to get to cleaner and greener power. I want to address a couple of the criticisms that have been given, and before that, praise also the DWP for moving so aggressively towards renewable energy. Certainly, it's something that I want to work in my time here with you on. In our time in Mexico, I know, Mr. Wiggs, you and I spoke with even Mexican utilities that are using everything from biomass to solar and other production. And I think that we can be a leading voice in that, not just on purchasing green power, but actually producing it, which we're relatively low on right now. One argument of staying involved with this right now people are giving is that we can clean it up. I don't think that with a 10% stake we can actually do that. And should we also be buying some Romanian coal plants and some leaky Ukrainian nuclear plants as well, because we'll have the opportunity to clean them up as well? I think we should, at this point, let those who need to clean this up, clean it up, those folks that are out of state, and for us at this point to support what Councilmember Galanter is proposing and sell off our entire stake. The costs for doing the morally right things sometimes are more, but this is the morally right thing to do. Do we want to be Los Angeles, the folks that are selling the dirtiest power in the country? We can take that money and invest it. Councilmember Hahn, you're right. Those people who own power can win, and we can own different sorts of power. Secondly, I think that whole argument, though, that this may not be economically prudent, while there is a risk, certainly, and we have to recognize that, though I think the risk is worth it, this right now is not necessarily financially imprudent. The spot market soon will be we can probably purchase this amount of megawatts cheaper than it exists right now. We should be investing in jobs here locally. We should be investing in power plants, yes, in neighborhoods with renewables. Look at San Francisco right now, which has on its ballot a move to do green power production in the city and around the city. While San Francisco is doing that, we want to hang on to the dirtiest coal plant in the country. My time is limited today, so I want to just end on one thing, because we have a lot of voices here. We have council members, we have people from DWP and from the city. But you have to ask when you have any room, which voices are not present? Who is not here to speak? And one voice of people that is not here to speak today is that of the Hopi Indians, who actually live and deal with the coal. And they are ones who have about 70% of their overall tribal budget from the sale of this coal. And yet they still oppose the way the pipeline slurries the coal, the way that it's depleting their water tables, holy springs that they have had, traditional burial grounds. If they and the folks who go to the Grand Canyon and look at that haze in one of our most wonderful natural treasures, look at that haze every single day, if we cannot speak for them, at least let their voices be heard today. And I just want to quote very briefly from one of them. The chairman, Vernon Masayavesa, said in 1990 that there are other ways to benefit from Hopi coal resources. It just seems foolish to be using water as a transportation method from the desert climate when you have an average rainfall of 6 to 7 inches. So you know the numbers. More than 1.4 billion gallons of water each year are used to transport only 5 million tons of coal. I think that we need to divest of this. We need to divest all of it, all 20%. I support Councilmember Galanter's motion to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Many, many years ago, there was a great argument in Los Angeles in the 20s about public power. And this council and water and power came together and supported public power and pushed Edison and other private entities out of Los Angeles. And over the years, the Department of Water and Power has championed many causes to improve power for our city. This partnership at this plant, and Mr. Garcetti, you made some great remarks there. It is sad anytime we leave our city and go out to that great Colorado River and see this plant spewing smoke into the sky. It is sad when we see any cause that we have made as a pueblo grown to a great city, as this region has grown, any cause of negative environmental activity. But the reality is, we're stronger today because we have public power. We're stronger today because we have generation, transmission, and distribution to the people of Los Angeles. I support the mayor's proposal, the Board of Commissioners' proposal, the CLA and the CAO on this. We can revisit this in the years ahead. But I see the commitment has been made by Water and Power to clean up this plant and other partners, which are, other than Edison, public entities, such as Nevada Power and the Salt River Project. It's very important to me to see that we keep that commitment to clean up the power, but we retain the power. This summer was a freak summer. It was a cool summer. It wasn't a hot summer. That may come again in the next few years. So it's important that we have that as an option for the citizens of Los Angeles. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak on this issue here and the opportunity to focus on this very important issue of power and what we own and what we should sell and what we should do with the money to clean it up, not only in Mojave, but also in basin throughout the facilities in the Los Angeles basin. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes. Mr. Reyes?
Señor Reyes.
Mr. Reyes passes. Mr. Holden?
Mr. President, these people, I mean my colleagues, are saying, sell the plant. And then the general manager has already said, Mr. Wiggs, at some point, if there's not enough energy, they have to ask for a rate increase. Well, if we have to ask for a rate increase, Ms. Galante won't be here to have to answer that question. Yes, I'm voting for it. No, I'm not. But the consumer will have to pay. The best way to protect the consumers, the city of Los Angeles, and their stranded debt, which has not been mentioned yet, the monies they use to acquire the plants, the monies they use to improve the production of the plants, is known as the stranded debt. At one point, we had about $8 billion debt. Anybody listening? Consumer will when you raise those rates. $8 billion debt. CAO, are you listening? $8 billion. Fact of the matter is that debt will still be outstanding, has been. We paid some of it down with the increase in energy costs before that we sold on our independent lines, transmission lines. We had all that assets because we paid, at least the consumer paid a higher rate for energy previously. It was an investment. And now you're sitting at the table, you weren't even here, Mr. Wiggs, and you want to give it all away. Now, it's not your fault, all total. It's the previous general manager. And the members of this council, Ruth Galante, who's not listening. The fact of the matter is they want to give it all away. And they're saying, well, it's a dirty burning plant. Well, if you sell it, it's still going to be a dirty burning plant. The difference is that the energy will come to the state of California, to the city of Los Angeles. That's the difference. The difference is it'll put a cap on the cost increase to our consumers for energy. That's the difference. And the difference is we'll have a hand in cleaning up that plant because we'll have a responsibility because we retain interest in it. It should be not 10% in my view. That's why I'm voting against the recommendation. She's voting against it because she's saying sell it all. I'm voting against it because I want it to go to arbitration. And I think the arbitrator will rule in our favor because we're doing a good job for the people of the state of California and the city, and the arbitrator should not deny us that opportunity. We have met our obligation when we gave the $3.8 million to AES and decided that deal was closed. If that deal was closed, then we're entitled to be made whole. And that is total ownership, possession of the 20% that we had prior there too. The argument can be clearly made before the arbitrator, and I think we have a good chance of winning. If it's 50-50, you're no better off than you would have been if you sold the deal outright, which would have been a mistake. So, Mr. President, members, I'm voting against the proposal for reasons different from what Ms. Galante is voting against it. I think the people should have a fighting chance, and I think they have a good chance to win when they fight. But you have to have the faith in what you believe in. You're sitting, you're kind of weak on that issue.
Ms. Galante.
We've discussed this, I think, probably long enough. I just want to make clear what my motion is. My motion is that rather than the proposal that is put before us by the department today, that we fulfill the original agreement, which is to sell our entire 20% share, and as part of the motion, that we ask the department to execute the necessary waiver to complete that sale. There was one little piece missing, or this would have been done months ago. I believe that the issues have been aired here at length a year ago, length again this year. I think it comes down to whether we want to take our power at the expense of somebody else's environment, or whether we are willing to put up with the inconvenience and the effort that it takes to conserve here at home, and if necessary to invest here at home in order to take care of our own people and our own environment without doing it in other states.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. I just want to get clear on what we have before us is the motion to reject the settlement. It's a motion to reject the settlement and divest ourselves completely of our ownership.
Of our share. Yeah.
Okay. My question is, if we don't settle this by the end of the month, do we automatically go to arbitration? Does this go to arbitration one way or the other? Unless we do it.
If we do not settle this with Salt River, right now we kind of have a tolling agreement with Salt River. There's no suits filed. Everybody's just maintaining their position until we get a response. If we choose not to settle, then it would be the next, then you have two alternatives. You either say to Salt River, we will complete the transaction and sell all of the unit, or in which case there's no litigation, we go forward and complete it, or we do what Mr. Holden has stated, is we simply sell Salt River. We're not selling any of it, which will trigger an arbitration, which we will then try over the next 6-8 months and see what happens.
And the arbitrator will either say you get yes or no, you get nothing, or you get
That's right. He would either say...
Well,
you
one of
have-
the things I'd like to put on the table is a motion to approve the settlement, because I believe that's our, at this point, based on where we've gotten, our best opportunity to hang on to 158 megawatts at a time when I really still believe the future is so uncertain. We need to hold on to that while we're involved in helping to clean up that plant. I believe that's our best option. So I move that we accept the recommendation of DWP to settle and retain half of our 20%, 10%.
Mr. Garcetti.
Oh, wait, no, I was going to move the previous question, but there's a new question.
Mr. Burnson.
Well, you know, you have got many of us in a confused situation because we don't get all the facts. That's the problem. And, you know, had all the facts been presented to us when the original sale of this property was proposed, such as firing up the dirty plants within Los Angeles, within the basin, I would have opposed the sale also, as Mr. Holder did. But we were never told that. We were told the money was going to be used for all these great new things. We were going to take all the old plants we had, we were going to clean them up and make them very, very clean with natural gas. Now, you know, in all due respect, and I've pretty much supported the department through the years, I hope that we're going to have a better communication system and you'll tell us what's really going on. I mean, this is totally unacceptable for us to find out at this date, after you've been through a forfeiture of this money and you change your mind about the sale, to come back to us, now give us all the reasons that you should have given us up front on why we shouldn't have done it. And that's exactly where we're at, members of the council, for those of you that were not here. And I can tell you that I'm not happy about it. Now, I'll tell you what I am going to listen simply because Mr. Deaton has spelled out the fact that we may have a shortage, and I think the most important thing that we have to do, responsibility, is make sure that we always have adequate power for our users within our city. So I'm going to go along with it, but I can tell you that I'm holding my nose as I vote for this settlement because I don't like it. Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
I move the previous question.
Okay. We had one member waiting to be heard. If everybody promises this could be the last speaker, Mr. Reyes wishes to be heard. Is that okay with you, Mr. Labange? Okay. Final speaker, Mr. Reyes.
Because we haven't been informed, I'm literally receiving this morning, my understanding is that if we vote no on both motions, that we can still come back next week, and we can still be within the time frames that the staff is concerned with. Is that correct?
I think you need a no vote on the ordinance approving. So long as the motion is to approve the motion, to approve the ordinance, if there is not a unanimous vote today, then it goes over 1 week.
Okay.
So if the...
Point of order. Point of order, Mr. President, just to say that the motion, if the council wants to consider this again, should vote yes on the motion that Ms. Hahn suggested, and then withhold on the ordinance so the matter will come over. But we need to vote yes on the motion to say that it should come back next week with withhold on the ordinance.
What I want to understand are the mechanics of this. I can get at least 1 week to digest this information, ask the questions, and make a decision based on informed body that should be presented to us. A lot of issues came up, and quite frankly, I agree with Councilman Burnson. There's a lot of confusion here. And it's a big-ticket item. We need to have this time to digest this.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. That concludes discussion. So for clarification, because it's an ordinance before us, lack of a unanimous vote would carry it over for 1 week. Now, correct. It's not because there's a couple of motions. We're getting there, Ms. Galanter. Bear with me, please, because we're going to take a number of votes here. Mr. Clerk, the first item we're voting on
is 36C, is the substitute motion, Hahn, Labange, to approve the settlement, the department recommendations.
Okay, everybody clear on that? Everybody clear on that?
substitute as a motion before us. The motion that would adopt the ordinance selling a 10% stake. For
Speak to the microphone, please, Ms. Galanter.
Sorry. All right, I'm going to clarify it for you. How? I'm going to clarify it for you.
Well, I'd like them to clarify.
Okay? I won't clarify.
Basically, what's before you is a substitute motion that would...
Not, it's whether to substitute the substitute motion. The first vote is to substitute.
Well, there was...
Shall we substitute and put the ordinance before us instead of my motion?
There was no motion. The first motion, my understanding, wasn't a substitute because there was nothing before you except...
Excuse me, I made a motion at the very beginning when I spoke.
Substitute is substitute.
You just...
In any event, a vote for Ms. Han's motion would put before the council would be approving going ahead with the Department of Water and Power.
We are substituting Janice's for mine if we vote yes.
What was Janice's motion?
To go through with this deal.
Point of order.
We're substituting your motion for hers.
Point of order.
Mr. Rudy Thomas.
For those of us who want to get this straight, it would be helpful if there could be one person to clarify it, because all of us are kind of asking which motion am I voting for? There's a substitute before, so can the clerk clarify the matter, or the city attorney?
Mr. Clerk, Mr. Burnson, please, Mr. Clerk.
Okay. The Commerce, Energy, and Natural Resources Committee submitted a report without recommendation. There were two motions made. The first motion was made by Ms. Galanter to fulfill the original agreement and sell 20% and request the department to execute the necessary waiver to complete the sale. Subsequent to that, Ms. Hahn also made a motion, and seconded by Mr. Labange, to approve the settlement, which were the department recommendations.
Was that a motion or a substitute motion by Ms. Hahn?
Substitute motion.
Okay, so what is now before us is a question of whether or not to substitute Ms. Hahn's motion for Ms. Galanter's motion. Ms. Hahn's motion would approve the recommendation from the department, which is before us. Once again, is everybody clear on that? Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll on the question of whether or not to substitute. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
9 ayes, 5 noes.
Motion passes. Now, the item is before us, the report that came from the department. Everybody clear on what we're voting on now?
Mr. President, to confuse matters, there is an amending motion also on the desk that amends the department's recommendations.
Okay, Mr. Rudy Thomas.
What was the roll call on that? How many required for a substitute? Is it 8 or 10? Yes. The city attorney is trying to determine. Is that wishful thinking coming from someone?
It's an 8-vote item.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney, and thank you, Mr. Holden.
That's why I thought I better verify it, Mr. President.
Okay, so now we have the department report and recommendation before us and an amendment as well. Mr. Clerk, the amendment, please.
The amendment is submitted by Councilmember Padilla Garcetti, and it states, in the interest of enhancing the public health and well-being of citizens and facilitating the transition from a fossil fuel-fired power plants to more environmentally friendly resources, the City Council requests that in exchange for approval of the proposed sale of a 50% interest in Mojave Power Plant, that some portion of the net earnings of the remaining 50% share be retained and dedicated to the funding of a renewable program designed to achieve the goals and objectives set forth by the City Council.
Any questions or discussion on the amendment? Mr. Reyes.
Are we now suggesting that whatever revenues come from that sale will be used toward alternative fuels? Half of it? Do we have a program to do that with, since the previous councils already told they were doing that, and evidently it didn't happen? Okay, so I want to know what commitments we have for that.
Point of order, Mr. President. I thought we closed debate on this, and this amendment was not discussed, but since we are discussing it, I think the general manager of the department should respond to whether or not that's going to tie their hands or not.
Mr. Wiggs?
Well, it was the motion to spend a portion of the proceeds we received, the $95 million, from the sale of half of our interest on renewable projects?
Yes. Correct, an unspecified amount.
Unspecified amount.
Or percentage.
That's, we have no problem with that. We are doing that and going forward, and we're already spending money, so we could certainly, we could bring a program back to you that would specify and maybe get some guidance on what portion.
Okay, Mr. Pacheco?
I was just simply going to ask if this should... Is that a run-on sentence? Whoever wrote that? Should this go to budget and finance is what my question was going to be. It sounds like we're... But this is not general fund money. This is TWP money, right?
It's all power revenue money under the purview of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee.
All right.
Point of information.
That's the only question I had.
Point of information.
Mr. Burns?
On your amendment, you use the word renewables. Does that pertain to power renewables? Or is it wide open?
Renewables, green power, there's a number of words that...
Well, I'd like to be specific. If it's going to be used for renewables, as far as our power sources are concerned, fine. But if it's going to be open-ended, I can't support it.
Okay,
So
we'll
clarify it.
have clarification from the department to be technical about it.
What's it going to be used for?
Well, I had understood it to be renewables for our power resources, for our...
Power resources. Well, I'm going to amend the amendment to state that, okay?
Okay, adopted as a friendly amendment. Mr. Labange? Mr. Garcetti? Okay. And this discussion on the amendment. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll on the amendment. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. We now have the amended matter before us. Mr. Clerk. Yes, the amendment was approved. We have now before us, Mr. Clerk, for clarification.
I'll just withhold and we don't have to take a vote.
Okay. Mr. Burnson withholds the department recommendation report before us with the ordinance carries over for a week.
So he's withholding on the ordinance.
On the ordinance.
Actually, withholding on the ordinance, you can vote on the underlying matter.
Okay. Please, everybody clear on that? Let's open the roll.
It's the Hahn motion, the substitute motion that was approved, that is going to be approved as amended by the other motion.
Please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 4 noes.
That is approved and the ordinance carries over for a week.
That'll be November 27th.
Next item, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Item number 57, called special, inasmuch as a member of the public wishes to be heard.
Mr. Willie Thomas.
With your consent, I would ask that we can reconsider item number 9. There was an amendment that was omitted that is technical in nature that would cause this to be done properly rather than having to go through an entire set of circumstances again.
Mr. Clerk, is item number 9 still in our possession?
It was acted on forthwith, but it has not left the building, so you may reconsider it.
Motion to reconsider item number 9 by Mr. Willie Thomas now before us. Please open the roll on reconsideration. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Item number 9 now back before us. Mr. Willie Thomas, did you wish to read the technical amendment?
The amendment would read as follows. Determine that the city-owned property at the northwesterly 100 feet of 2055 South Sepulveda in Los Angeles is no longer required for the city use and that the public interest is served by the direct sale of the property. That wraps it up, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Willie Thomas. Colleagues, number 9 as amended is now before us. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Number 9 as amended is approved. And once again, forthwith on that, please. Next item.
Forthwith on 36.
Yes, we did that. Next item, please.
Item number 57, member of the public wishes to be heard.
Item number 57 before us. The council calls forward Mr. Cliff Ruff.
Yes, the Los Angeles Police Protective League and the future of our city in light of September 11th and having the proper facilities to accommodate the growth we're going to have, but it also represents a bargain for the taxpayers with the interest rates as low as there are. So we fully will endorse and support the passage of this bond measure and ask for your support also.
Thank you, Mr. Ruff. This concludes public comment on this item. Members wishing to speak on item 57. Mr. Zine.
And Mr. President, colleagues, I know we want to have facilities for our public safety employees, and the stations designated, even though there's security measures in place, I'm sure that the area captains would be willing to take any skeptics to those facilities, whether it be West Valley, Harbor, Rampart, Hollenbeck, to view the facilities that the officers have to work in, the detective operations, the trailers that they're working out of. So any of the skeptics who want to go have a personal view, I encourage them to contact the captain at those divisions and have a personal view. And if they want to see some of the fire operations, they can go to the Station 105 at Victory and Fallbrook, where the ambulance sits out in the parking lot because they don't have a garage to house it. And if you look at the quarters that the firefighters have to work out of, the paramedics, they're desperately in need of improvements. This is an urgent measure for public safety for the city of Los Angeles. The cost will be a little over $30 a year. I think it's $32 on a $200,000 residence, and it's going to enhance the safety of the city, enhance the safety of our public safety employees. I'm glad to hear that the Protective League supports it, and I'm sure the other public safety agencies will be in support along with colleagues here in City Hall. But there will be skeptics who say that we're not going to follow the direction, and we're not going to build the facilities, and we're not going to carry out the mandate. And I know we're going to have an oversight. And if we look at what's happened with the library department, they do have adequate oversight, in fact, very positive oversight. We see libraries sparking up all over the city now. So with the proper oversight and the proper direction from this body, this legislative body, we can improve public safety, give our city employees the proper facilities. And we don't know when the next tragedy will strike, but we need to have our adequate resources and our personnel ready to protect us and our families. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Other members wishing to be heard? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith. Next item, please.
Mr. President,
Ms. Galanter.
could I just ask for reconsideration of item 20? I'm sorry that slipped by me. It's an item in my district. I just want to reconsider it for the purpose of continuing it for 30 days.
Okay, motion to reconsider before us. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Thank you. And now I'd like to move that we continue that for 30 days.
Without objection, that shall be continued.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
That'll be
Galanter.
December 21st.
Next item, please.
Item number 59, called special by Councilmember Holden. There is an amending motion that has been circulated.
Is it the desire of the body to take 59, 60, and 61 together? I believe the author of those motions concurs. Mr. Holden.
Mr. President, members, item 59, 60, and 61 deals with three proposals. One proposal is that the voters of the city of Los Angeles be given an opportunity to decide whether or not they would like to vote to extend term limits to 3 terms. The other proposition, 4 terms or no terms at all, where there be a total repeal of term limits. Just 8 years ago, then Dick Reardon generated an initiative, put in the ballot, with the mood of the people of the state of California, the city being one way, saying, let's have term limits. They've had 8 years to study term limits and the effect of it in the city of Los Angeles. They had that at least number of years to study the effect of term limits in the legislature. And now we're getting backlash, where some people are saying, well, it was a good study, and now we know we don't like term limits, that is not good policy, that is not making for good government. And they would like to at least have an opportunity to decide whether or not they want to continue term limits by a vote of the people, or have 3 terms, 4 terms, or no term limits. Well, there are those amongst us who argue that if you put too many propositions on the ballot, too many of these initiatives on the ballot, the voters will get confused. I disagree. The voters were not confused when they elected each and every one of us to public office. The voters were not confused when they decided whether or not they want to establish term limits. And I say to you at the time, I beg of you, to give the voters a chance to decide whether or not it's been good for the city, been good public policy, or at least they should have an opportunity to change. I don't think that any one of us should say that we will personally benefit from these issues on the ballot, because we can't think of it personally. I think the question before us is whether or not the voters of this city can make the change if you choose to do so. You just one vote. You may be for continuing term limits. You may be for extending terms 3, 4, or no terms at all. But when you bring your personal feelings into it, then you really, it's a conflict. You begin to confuse. You become confused as to why you should vote to do one thing or the other. It is my opinion, Mr. President, members, that only the voters and the voter alone should decide what this public policy ought to be. I'm convinced, as many others, that it has not worked in the way the voters thought it would work. And I'm not being personal about it, because I've served 4 terms here, elected for 4 terms. That's 16 years. And I have first-hand knowledge. And then, Mr. Bernstein,
And you've also used your 3 minutes.
No, I'm the author, and I can produce. I have 6 minutes.
Oh, okay. Maybe Alex will be back by then. I don't think so. I think the committee chair has 6 minutes.
If you author the motion, you get 6 minutes. You get double. You just confused me. I don't know why I put you in the chair right away.
Mr. Holden, nothing can confuse you. You did use your 3 minutes, though. Ms. Misikowski would like to speak.
Miss, what did you say?
I said you did use your 3 minutes, and Ms. Misikowski would like to speak.
The rules are that, in any case, Madam President, members, I was saying Mr. President, but you're up there now.
Yeah, well, it won't be for long. Don't worry about it.
Right. The fact of the matter is that it's the voters' decision. I just don't believe, and you've been in 16 years also, that 8 years is enough time.
14 years and 4.5 months. Sorry, go ahead.
That 8 years is enough time to get your job done for which you were elected to do. Just not enough time. There are many projects, there are a lot of public input on various projects. You have to have community hearings on development projects. Even when you put in a swimming pool, even if you're going to increase the size, expand a street, improve a street where you're going to widen it, it could take as much as 2 years. Fairfax took 10 years. Because the public said yes, the public said no.
Mr. Holden, the longer you keep going over your 3 minutes, the more people sign up to speak. And we also have someone from the public who wants to be heard. So could I ask you to wind it up?
Well, I was entitled to 6 minutes, but I'll sit down because you're in the chair, but you won't be there long.
I knew there was a technique to be found. All right, I have Ms. Misikowski, Mr. Bernstein, and Ms. Hahn, and I also have one member of the public. Do you want to
Why don't you listen to the member of the
hear
public
from the
first?
public first? We have Mr. Candido Mares.
Thank you, Madam President, council members. Most of you have seen me here for almost over 10 years, and I'm not here to be your friend, and I'm not being mean, and I'm not here to get on television. What I'm here for is to learn. And the one thing I've learned is I don't understand why you folks want this job. It is unbelievable what you have to go through. I mean, the demands on you are unbelievable. I've been honored and privileged to have Mr. Burnson as my council member, and I thank you, sir. But I've also been able to work with other, I believe, 6 other council members. The Delano Park that we've dealt with in your district, Mrs. Muskowski, I mean, it's delay after delay after delay. And the thing that I learned is that you need at least 12 years, because your first term, you do certain things. Your second term should be to complete those things. What has happened in the past is that people have been forced to look for that other job. In 2 terms, it's not enough. We need 3 terms. We need 3 terms.
Thank you very much. This concludes the public comment on this item. Mr. Holden, do you still wish to be recognized? Okay. He didn't get to finish. As the author of the 3 motions, he's going to multiply his 3 minutes by 3 motions and take 9.
As the author, but since these old timers here want to get out real fast, and they don't want to give you an opportunity. Oh, okay, then I'll sit down. You can vote for the motion.
Ms. Muskowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the council, I wasn't here last week when when you had this discussion. And my thoughts on this are that we only should put one matter on the ballot, and I think that we should put on the ballot that is going to be consistent with what the County Board of Supervisors is going to be asking for, that is the 3 terms, and will be consistent with what in a variation, what the state legislature is going to be doing, and that is a 12-year potential full term, a full complement of terms. But I do have some technical questions, and again, members of the council, my view is that where the public may be having some questions about term limits, I don't think they want to throw it all out. They want to modify it, and they want to make it seem reasonable. And I think that the 12-year total is what is reasonable. And I think anything that we do that goes too far afield is going to possibly condemn it all. So I think we ought to be prudent and judicious with what we put forward, and that's why I have a couple of questions for the city attorney or the staff. So I support only the 3-term proposal, and I think that's the only one we should put on. But I also have a concern. It is written now to say that there are no more than 3 consecutive terms. Our current charter, the previous charter, and what the voters approved was the 2-term limit complete. Consecutive or otherwise, you were allowed 2 terms on the council. I think we should only modify this to the 3 terms on the council, not consecutive, because if we put it on as consecutive, it allows people to serve 3 terms, leave for a term, and come back and serve another 3 terms. So it's sort of a backdoor approach, and I think the more we put in that modifies or confuses or seems different from what we're saying, the voters know 2 terms, that's what's understood, that's how it's been represented throughout the state and the other applicable jurisdictions, and I think we should do this very modestly. And I'd just like to ask the city attorney whether or not that's correct, that the 3 consecutive terms would allow someone to step out and come back, and how we should word it. And my motion would be that we modify the 3-term suggestion for the ballot so that it be consistent with what is now in the charter, just adding 1 more term.
Yes, Peter Echeverria from the City Attorney's Office. You're correct. Adding the term consecutive does introduce another element. Our report indicates yet another point that needs to be clarified by you. I think that removal of consecutive would move towards clarifying it. The other point that needs to be clarified is that as things stand right now, the courts have applied the term limits to apply to any terms that are served from 1993 forward. If you make a change now, we don't know how the courts, and you don't clarify which terms would count, we don't know how the courts would treat that. So we would also say, if you were inclined to clarify that it would be perhaps 3 terms, not refer to consecutive, and perhaps say served in a lifetime, regardless of when served.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification. Mr. Holden, it is my time. No, right now the amendment says consecutive, which is different, so we need to modify that and remove consecutive. Okay. And then the other thing I would like to clarify is that the wording be that it be back to 1993, so it would only be 1 additional term for those who might be in a second term, so we would have 3 total from 1993, not 3 potential new ones. And it's interesting, members of the council, let me just give you a little anecdote. When the charter came in, the first version of the charter that was on this council to go to the ballot talked about the two-term limits, but it did not have a date specific, and it would have appeared until that correction was made that everyone who was coming to the end of that two-term limits with the adoption of the charter would have had 2 new terms, because that's the way the language in the charter read. The Charter Commission recognized that, said, no, we don't need to change that, we don't mean to change that, we are leaving that in place. So again, I think consistent with those past actions, consistent with a very judicious, prudent amendment, we should go back and just make it 3 terms complete, but dating from the 1993 vote of the people, which said that term limits was what they wanted as part of the city's future. So that would be my motion.
Thank you. Mr. Dean?
On just a matter, a note, item number 60A and A1 and 59A1, Mr. Holden has put in a motion that it would be a lifetime limit for either 4 or 3 full terms, not including partial terms, applied retroactively and without a requirement that terms be served consecutively. In other words, that would mean that no matter when you serve the terms, if it was 3 or 4, you would be limited to 3 or 4, and it would be lifetime and totally retroactive lifetime as well.
Mr. Burnson.
Well, frankly, I think that term limits are probably the worst thing that ever happened to the public. But I have a suggestion, and that is that we put the language on the ballot that says that the term of office shall be limited to 4 years unless reelected by the public. Now, that's actually tells it the way it is, folks, because there is a limit. It's a 1-term limit unless reelected by the public. Now, if the public doesn't want you there, they can limit you to 1 term. If they do want you, they can reinstate your contract for another 4 years. And I don't see why they ever imposed something like this in the first place, because it has clearly shown that it's not for the benefit of the people, because the ability to do the job depends upon the experience that you get. And I can tell you that I've been here, this is my 23rd year, and hopefully I learned something new every day. I learned something new about Department of Water and Power today that I didn't know, which some of you saw, okay? And that happens every day. So the losers in this thing are not the politicians, because you're out looking for another seat or another job, or whatever the case may be once you are reelected for your 2nd term. So who benefits and who loses? The public loses, because they're not getting the proficiency that you would have in additional service, and you will gain it. The longer you serve, the more proficient, as long as you have your faculties, and don't lose them like Nate and I have. But the point is that you do benefit, the public does benefit from the service you're able to give. I would hope that we would give the voters the opportunity to also totally repeal term limits. And I think, I don't know if we can craft something in that order, but if we're going to put something on the ballot, we ought to have measures that say no term limits, or 3 terms or 4 terms. I don't have a problem with that. I can tell you that where my sentiments lie, and I have absolutely nothing to gain as an elected official, because I'm not running again no matter what for anything, but I can tell you that I would hope that the party that succeeds me in my district is able to serve as long as the people want that person.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I, with all due respect, Councilman Holden, that we're not supposed to interject personal feelings. Everything is personal. And if it's not personal in everything that we do here, then we're not being truly honest. And Councilman Burnson, you wonder why the electorate imposed term limits? You know, I think we know why they imposed term limits. I think it's the same reason we have 2 sections of the city wanting to leave. I think it's the reason that for 2 years on the Charter Commission, we heard from all over the city that people had lost faith in their better government. They'd lost faith in City Hall. They didn't feel like politicians were accountable, were responsive, were being efficient in what they did because there was no accountability with the voters. And while many of us might believe that term limits is a bad idea, a bad experiment, I personally talked about my dad last time. There was a man who served 46 years. He was elected to 10 terms on the Board of Supervisors. But the fact of the matter, not everybody is a Kenny Hahn. And that's the reason voters said they just felt like the system was so imbalanced that they had to impose term limits to get some of us out. And while we may think that voters want to repeal term limits, we may think that voters want to extend our term limits, I haven't really heard that. It would be one thing if we had some citizens panel on better government and they came to us with a suggestion that for better government they wanted to extend term limits. That would be one thing. But, you know, this came from politicians. We have politicians that are saying we ought to extend term limits. Friday we had this debate. Over the weekend, I'd like to know how many of you had constituents that came up to you and said they were for extending term limits. I didn't hear that from my constituents. I don't think we ought to put 3 of these on the ballot. I don't think voters want to repeal term limits, so I don't think we ought to put on there 0 term limits. I have not heard that. There has not been a groundswell of voters. In fact, the only initiative on the ballot in March is from wanting to impose term limits on county supervisors. That did come from grassroots. At the state level, again, it's the legislators putting on the ballot that they want to extend their own term limits. So for consistency, I think we ought to put one measure on the ballot. If you really think voters want to extend term limits, let's let them say whether or not they want to extend it to 3 terms. I think 4 terms is wrong. I don't think voters want us to be in that long. And you know, frankly, I've only got 1 term. I've got 4 years. That's all I've been elected for. And I'm not going to wait for my 2nd term. I'm not going to wait. If voters want to give me a 3rd term, that's their choice. But I'm working every day, as I know every one of you are, to accomplish things, to get projects, to move government, to bend to the will of the people. And that's all we're promised is the term that we've been elected. I'm not in favor of putting all 3 of these on the ballot. If you really think voters want to give us 12 years, then let's let them vote on the 3 term. But I have not heard this overwhelmingly from my constituents that they want to get rid of term limits.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt. Mr. Pacheco.
Put 3 terms in the ballot, I'm campaign against it. I'm going to kill that issue. It's going to be dead. You're stuck with 2 terms.
Mr. Pacheco.
Mr. President, colleagues, I simply wanted to point out that in whatever direction we go in, I would just simply ask that we look at this in the broader context. I do not hold the position that Mr. Holden advanced based on the state's experience of musical chairs that we should follow and eliminate term limits. I actually believe in term limits. I think they're healthy for government. I would simply agree, though, that 12 years is probably a more appropriate number considering the length of time it takes to do projects. And we're all working very hard every day to move our projects, but we know that some of our projects are dependent on state and federal funding that are in different cycles. Some of our good projects can apply for tax credits 1 year and not make it, but they'll be up another year after that. So I would simply recommend that we move to be consistent with the state and the county and work on 3 terms as our final position. So I'm not sure what all the votes we have to do, but I would simply, I believe Mr. Holden has a 60A-1, I believe, is the one I want to vote for. Yeah, that's it. With the appropriate amendment from Mr. Kowski, I would say 60A-1 is the one I would move.
Thank you, Mr. Pacheco. Mr. Holt.
Mr. President, members, I can't believe my ears. If your constituents have not come to you and say, we're not satisfied with 2 terms, that maybe you'll look at 3, then why are you putting 3 before them? Why would you support any term extension at all? If you think the voters should have the authority to make that decision, then let them make that decision. No? You're saying, oh, they're not going to vote for it, so I'm not going to give it to them. I'm going to give them just one item to choose from. That's all. Maybe they want 4. Maybe they want to repeal term limits altogether. You don't want to put that on the ballot. So I'm going to promise you one thing. I'm going to vote no on 3 terms. If that's all you put in the ballot, then I'm going to campaign against it, which is going to guarantee its death. You'll be stuck with 2 terms because you say one thing in private, you stand up on this council floor, and you make it seem like we are all criminals for supporting, giving the voters an opportunity to decide. I'm term limited and I'm out. I think it's good public policy, good government, to have more time to learn the process and then to implement it. I think it's a good opportunity to give the voters a chance to decide if they want to do that. But if you stand up here and say one thing and say and filibuster like I've been hearing, then you don't deserve any more than what you have. And if I can do anything with it, you'll get no more. That's all you're going to get. I mean, you can get reelected, but I can tell you what, if I have anything to do with it, there will be no term extension. Because I'm going to campaign against it. Because I say what you have there in council now is hypocrites who say one thing and then do another. So you can't trust them. If I can't trust you now, then do I need you here for 12 years or 16 years where I can't trust you? So I'm going to tell you right now, maybe we have to get a whole new body and we'll try them. But this is down the tubes as far as I'm concerned. And I ask for no vote on this.
Mr. Weiss, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Holden, what I'd say to you is that actually, and I'm going to vote in favor of the 3-term option, and I'm going to vote against putting the 4-term and the no-term option on the ballot. But if either of those are on the ballot, I don't think they're bad public policy. I'm not voting against them because I think they're bad public policy. I'm voting against them today because the people of this city spoke very loudly and very clearly on this subject a decade ago, and I think there are probably good arguments on both sides. I'm in favor of giving the people of the city a modest option for a modest extension, and I'm in favor of doing it in the manner that my colleague Ms. Mizikowski suggested, and for the reasons she suggested, so that we're consistent in an overall sense with the state and county measures and with the provisos that she's mentioned. There's one additional question I would ask of the attorneys, which is, I know that the county measure includes a provision relating to a half-term, and if we can have order in here, we've had this arise before, and we're undoubtedly going to have it arise again in council with respect to when does a half-term constitute a full term and when does it not. As currently drafted, what is the contemplation of the motions or the proposed measures before us, and should we, if we wanted to be safe, include some language along the lines of the county relating to half-terms? If I could retain the rest of my time, if there is
What's in the charter right now provides that a partial term of less than 1/2 of the term does not count toward the term limits. What we have drafted and sent to you, based on your action last week, keeps that language in the charter. And unless we were instructed otherwise, we would assume that would stay in the charter.
I may point out, however, that item 60A1 does include the word not including partial terms. So under that motion, if that were adopted, however amended, if that's not changed, then partial terms would not count at all. It's not including partial terms.
Well, I would suggest that we should have a consistent rule for partial terms, and I would also ask council, Ms. Mizikowski made a motion to indicate that, essentially to indicate that the clock is not being reset by passing these measures. And the clock starts in 1993. Is there a way to make that clear on the face of the measures themselves, so when the voters go to vote, they could actually see that on the face of the ballot measure?
If it's the council's intention that terms prior to 1993 not count, then the council should so instruct us, and we will include that language in the charter amendment that we return to you. It will probably be the same language as was in the charter when it was amended in 1993.
The answer to your question is yes, it would be appropriate to put it in the measure. The question we have is, what is your instruction in that regard? Is it a lifetime ban that includes terms whenever served, or after a certain date?
I'm actually asking a different question, which is to make clear to the voters that if they passed, for example, the 3-term measure, that it wouldn't be 3 new terms for members of the council, but that the term of the terms began running in, what was it, 1993, 1995?
Whenever the council designates.
And I believe Ms. Mizikowski made a motion along those lines. I want to know if we can have that in the face of the measure. Mr. Deaton?
Mr. Holden's motion basically says the 3 terms started whenever.
Anytime.
At any time. In other words, no matter when you serve them, you have a maximum of 3 terms plus however you work out the partial term language.
That's 60A1.
Right. So it would be forever.
I would suggest to the council, if they want to have this to be retroactive all the way back to the beginning of time, that they instruct us with regard to whether or not someone who has already served all of the terms could remain in office for the rest of the current term, because otherwise there would be an ambiguity. So if you want this to be retroactive to the beginning, then you should also instruct us whether or not you want the term limits to cut off the tenure of one of the members of the council within a term that they've been elected to serve. You won't have that problem if you want this to be retroactive to 1993, because you're not going to have anybody who served 3 terms after that.
Let me add that if you don't instruct us otherwise and you say a 3-term lifetime term ban, we will bring you back a measure that would not cut any of you off in mid-term. It would allow you to serve the balance of the term. So to address Mr. Albrin's point, I think unless you instruct us differently, we would preserve whatever term is currently in effect.
So that the way it's Mr. Holden's motion, it would apply to Mr. Wilkinson, who was here just a few minutes ago.
Thank you. Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. Would this apply to the mayor, the controller, the city attorney, or just the council? Under the terms of 60A1, it would apply only to the council. What about the terms that are in the charter right now, the term limits that apply to the mayor, the controller, and the city attorney would not be changed? So the mayor, the city attorney, the controller would have 2 terms, the council would have 3 terms. Under 60A1, that's correct. I think that may be a problem. And I asked my colleague, Councilman Holden, who brought this forward, and I know he didn't do it for a self-serving purpose. When we first discussed it, I said I would support the 3 years, so I'm not being hypocritical by saying I would support the 3-year term. Have any, pardon me? 3 terms. 3-year term, 3 terms, 3 terms, 3 4-year terms. Have the homeowner groups, Jarvis Tax Group, Chambers of Commerce, business community, newspaper, has anyone, other than our debate, has there been any information or any concern from anyone? No one's asked me anything. It's like we're doing this to benefit the public, and the public hasn't said a thing about it, whether it's important to them or not. Has anyone done any kind of research or any kind of review with the people out there who we serve? I see our attorneys are huddling for maybe an answer.
Mr. Holden may wish to reply to this question.
If you're going to be influenced by the press,
I didn't say the press. I said the people we serve, the taxpayer groups, the homeowners, the people we're elected to serve.
The League of Women Voters are going to be against term limits. They're going to come out in favor of repealing term limits. We were just told that the other day. And that's going to be their position, official position.
What about the other groups that represent
most of the groups
4
that
million
I've
people
talked
of LA?
to are against term limits. They see the cause and effect is really, the effect has been really damaging to the whole process.
But has anyone stepped forward to say yay or nay regarding this change that we're proposing? Because I haven't heard.
Yes,
I heard from one representative from the San Fernando Valley. I haven't heard from anyone else, and the concern is we're debating this issue to serve them, the people of Los Angeles, and I haven't heard a thing from any of them.
Mr. Zine, we can do one or two things: go forward, or I can withdraw my motion and leave it the way it is, and you go out and you find out, do a poll, and find out how people think about it before you put it in the ballot. Nothing says you get to put it in the ballot for March. You can hold it off and put it in the ballot for November. And if that's what some of you are concerned about, then maybe you ought to not do anything at all today. And because I'm getting a little trouble about it also, since even though I'm the author, let's do nothing and let's go out and sample your district, see what they think. And if they say, they tell you yes, then you go forward. They tell you no, then you don't vote for it. You just serve out your term and then you exit.
And what about the mayor? And what about the controller? What about the city attorney?
Then you can ask them about the mayor and all the citywide elected officials when you do your survey. So I would say to you that maybe the most appropriate things for us to do today is to table this whole discussion and see what, and go out and do a survey.
I think we should see what the people of Los Angeles want,
Yeah,
so we can
I
provide
agree.
them the government they want instead of us making their decision
I'm
for
willing to
them.
back off. I'm willing to back off and not do anything, and because that's the sense that I'm getting from the members of the council. And you go out and do a survey in your own districts and see what they think, and if they like it, then you go forward.
We have more people either supporting or against
Well,
it.
I'm going to move then that my motion be tabled, until you do a survey in your district. I think that, Mr. Burns said, I'm going to move that that I table my motion until we can, and I'm sure they all are going to vote to support that because they're not going to show that they have a personal interest. So vote to table this motion, and then we see what happens till you do a survey in your district and see what the people think.
Some research might help.
Yeah, if that's what you
Okay.
believe. Yeah.
Mr. Holden, for clarification, is you wish to continue these items? You wish, Mr. Holden, you wish these items to be referred to committee? You wish to continue
Yeah,
with
refer
the
to committee.
disposition you request?
Per the committee.
Mr. Reyes.
Council President, members, my question was more in terms of cost. I mean, we're voting on putting stuff on the ballot. It costs money to do that. I just want to get a feel for that. I understand it's $2 million for all three items to go on the ballot. What's the cost per item? Yeah, I would support the 3 terms of 12 years myself. But bottom line, I just want to understand, what are we talking about in terms of taxpayers' expenses in doing this?
If you do not put the one-term limit measure on, that eliminates about $200,000 of cost. My current estimate for 3 measures to place before the voters in March is $2.1 million. One measure is about $1.7 million, and it's $200,000 for each additional measure.
Mr. Carey, is the city reimbursed in any way?
You've passed the police bond measure. You can, in that instance, reimburse the general fund for that portion of the election cost related to the police bond measure. My measure changing the election dates, we will get reimbursed because it is a school board election date as well. So they will pay a portion of the cost of that election.
Okay, so bottom line is just over $1 million to put this ballot on the measure.
It's $1.2 million just to walk over to the county. It's another $500,000 to print up a pamphlet for one measure. As you add measures, it's approximately $200,000 for each measure. That includes additional county cost and additional cost for adding to our pamphlet. We mail out the voter information pamphlet. The county simply puts the measure into the ballot.
Members of the council, I would just like to encourage that we be prudent let's focus on one if we can. I personally am supporting the 3 terms for all the reasons I've already stated in our previous discussion. I truly believe that when we look at our cycles of real estate, when you look at, the trends that go on every 10, 12 years, the last time the interest rates were this low was in the early 90s. Last time we were trying to pick up and reassess and move on economic development strategies was in the early 90s. We've come full cycle. We're at a point now where the strong will get stronger and the weak get weaker in terms of how we deal with our real estate issues and our development issues. And they should have strong links to how we nourish our communities of need. So again, let's be prudent. I would advocate the 3 terms, and I'm not sure what Councilman Holden is going to do now with this other gesture, but we'll wait and see.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. That's all we can do is wait and see. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll try to be brief. I know that the debate here kind of got quite personal, but I think that for all of us, we are elected to say what our consciences are. We're elected to also respect what the voters do, and we can do both simultaneously. We can say that it's our conscience, that we believe now, having seen it, having been here, that 3 terms or 2 terms or 1 term or 4 terms is what we believe is what serves the people best. Myself, I support 3, like Councilmember Reyes just spoke about. I'll say that publicly, Mr. Holden. I'll say that privately, Mr. Holden. It will be consistent when the cameras go off and when the cameras are on. And all we are doing is checking back with the voters. And I think you're right, Mr. Reyes. We shouldn't waste taxpayer money. We shouldn't put necessarily everything up there. And I think that we have to also recognize Councilmember Holden for actually doing this. This is a selfless act. This was something which is not going to benefit him directly. And it's something in which we go back and we have a fluid democracy. That is not a bad thing. There's plenty of heat. But make no mistake, if we put this on the ballot, let's not be timid about saying what we believe. Whether we win or we lose, it's going to require some leadership, just as when Richard Reardon put a couple $1 million into a different ballot initiative that created the term limits, he was out there campaigning as well. Now that might have gotten him elected mayor, and campaigning on this probably isn't going to get us elected to anything, but we do have the responsibility to say what our consciences are, not just on Channel 35, but once this gets on the ballot. So if we go forward with this and vote for it, and I urge you to, let's also make sure that we say where we are on this issue, and thank you, Councilmember Holden, for bringing this to our attention.
Ms. Mitzikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Zine, the ultimate survey, the ultimate poll is going to the voters and asking them. They can vote this down. That will tell us. Again, I think consistent with what the other jurisdictions are doing, this is a reasonable time. I would just like to make sure that as we put the 3 on, that we do a couple of things. 1, in 60A, we eliminate the word consecutive. 2, let's be straight on the partial, that partial terms shall apply like they now apply. If it's less than a full half a term, as I think in Mr. Padilla's case and others, and that's been the consistent history, that you get the 3 terms plus the less than full partial. So I'd like that modified. I also think I'm satisfied with the lifetime. I think that makes sense. It reaches back to everybody and basically keeps the compact that it's those terms ever served. And I am going to agree with Mr. Zine. I think we should include all electeds in the city. We shouldn't distinguish ourselves. Term limits, as was written by the voters, applied to everybody. As we're looking to modify it, we shouldn't start to divide and or perceive a divide and conquer. We should apply it across the board. So I would like to make those changes in 68 and then ask that we put that on the ballot and let the people decide.
May I ask a clarification, please? You said all terms were never served, so the 1993 date would...
Right. I'm pulling that back now and saying it'll be all terms ever served.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, with all due respect, I think Councilman Holden, again, brought this in as a change to our charter that would not impact him, and I believe he thinks he's doing what the voters want. But not being hypocritical, but have not felt like we heard overwhelmingly from the voters that this is what they want. But we do have some options this morning. And Councilman Zine, if we want a polling, it's going to happen in March, whether we put this on the ballot or not. There will be 2 items on the March ballot where we can very well see how the city of Los Angeles, we can see how our districts voted in terms of limiting county supervisors' limits and in terms of extending assembly and state senate terms. That will be at no cost to us. We could have free polling if we waited till another time to put this on the ballot. I agree. I believe we need to include all elected positions in the city of Los Angeles. If we think term limits is a bad idea, if you think voters think it's a bad experiment, then it's a bad experiment for the city controller, it's a bad experiment for the city attorney, and it's a bad experiment for the mayor of our city. Again, without being hypocritical, and I think in a way, again, I got criticized for using the word disingenuous last time, not everyone knew what that meant, but you know, for Councilman Garcetti to say we've been here and we know that it's not long enough is interesting. We've been here, you know, a little over 4 months. So I don't know how that we can actually say we don't know whether or not it's long enough or short enough. So again, to be consistent, if we actually believe that the voters, we should check back in with the voters. Although we checked with them in '93, we checked with them in '99 with the city charter. So if we want to check with them again, I think the most prudent way to do this is to support Cindy Miskowski's motion to just limit it to letting the voters decide whether or not they think our term should be extended to 3 terms. While we always remember that term limits how long we can serve, it does not give us those terms to serve.
Mr. Holden.
Mr. President, members, as I said, I don't stand to gain personally. My constituents say they would if I were to stay in office, but time has come and I'm not going to be here. And that's a fact. But I will say to you that if you add the citywide elected officials to this for extending the terms, that doesn't follow like in Washington where the House and the Senate is there for life if they're reelected. 2 terms is enough for them. I think what you do, if you wait this down, then it's guaranteed not to have the chance, the likelihood of passing, number 1. Number 2, I think that I'm for getting an impression from the voter, because that's what you're saying. I want to know what the voter feel. The best way to find out how they feel about it is to wait until March when they vote on the counties matter, when they vote on the states matter. So we don't do nothing until then. And then we'll wait and see what they do. And then we can come back later on. They say, well, no, you didn't choose it at the right time. Timing is wrong, so we're not going to do anything because you don't have enough people around with enough courage come in later on to put it back on the ballot again. So I would say that let's refer all 3 of my proposals back to the committee, or to committee, because it hasn't been a committee yet, and wait and see what happens. Do a survey, and the survey will take place in March when they vote on this county's proposal, when they vote on the state proposal. And then we'll have a pretty good idea then what you want to do beyond that point. I'll still be around, so if you want me to put the motion in, then I will do it. But as of right now, I'm going to vote no if it's before us. If my motion to send it to committee fails, and I hope that it doesn't fail, because then it'll show that something is wrong about the way you think. I would expect people who are uncertain about how their constituents feel about this issue, I expect them to vote to send this matter to committee and hold it there until we get an expression from the voters in March. That still is my motion, Mr. President. All 3 proposals.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. That, I believe, ends discussion. Mr. Clerk, do you have items before us?
Mr. President, item number 59, 60, and 61 have been discussed as a group. There is a motion for the entire group, and that motion is put forth by Councilmember Holden and seconded by Mr. Zine to withdraw from the agenda and refer all 3 back to the Rules, Elections, and IGR Committee.
That takes precedence and will be our first vote. Everybody clear on that? Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. The motion is to send it all to committee. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
5 ayes, 7 noes.
Failed.
So all three options are now are still before us.
My motion, I think, was to adopt only 60A as amended with the additional motions that I made, and note and file the other two.
Mr. Clerk?
Wait,
We're not opening the roll.
If the motion includes a note and file of the other two, we can take number 60 at this time. If not, we should take them individually. So,
Mr. Pacheco?
Point of information, did your amendment include when you said across, what did you mean when you said across the board?
It meant for all elected offices in the city, not just the city council, but the citywide offices as well. It should apply to all.
All right, I can't support that.
Okay, well, let's vote on that amendment first. Mr. Clerk?
60B is a Miskowski-Weiss motion. It would be to note and file 59 and 61 to limit to 3 terms for a total of 12 years, consistent with the charter and the voter approval from 1993, to add just one more term, and would address removal of consecutive from 60A1, as well as address partial term and lifetime.
Mr. President, I believe
that's what's before us. If it makes a difference, give me a second. If it makes a difference as to whether or not it applies to all city officials versus city council, it may make sense to separate the issue. Let's vote on the amendment to have it apply to all city officials first, and after the outcome of that vote, then we'll take a vote on the entire matter. Mr. City Attorney?
a clarification from what the clerk said. I believe there was no limit, no date specified. The 1993 date that he referred to would not be part of the motion. It's a lifetime, whenever served.
Okay, so that's clear. Members, any objection to separating the issue?
No, that means
Mr.
that
Holden?
you get 3 terms life. That means that you're out as soon as you vote.
No, all current terms would be served out.
All right, but I'm voting no.
Okay, so without objection, we're going to separate the issue. Let's take a vote simply on the question of will this apply only to city council, or will this apply to all city officials? It's currently written as city council only. The motion is to amend it to apply to all city officials. So a yes vote would have it apply to all officials. A no vote leaves it at just city council members. Everybody clear? Okay. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
8 ayes, 4 noes.
That is approved. So now
You have Ms. Miskowski's motion to note and file 59 and 61, limit to 3 terms for a total of 12 years, consistent with charter, vote approval for lifetime, add one more term, and remove consecutive from 60A1.
So this is to approve the 3-term limit option and receive and file the other 2. Correct, Mr. Clerk?
As amended.
As amended. Everybody clear? Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
9 ayes, 3 noes.
That is approved. Mr. City
President,
Attorney?
we will bring back the documents revised with these changes to you tomorrow if you continue this matter to tomorrow's agenda.
So ordered. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
I believe there has to be a motion to continue.
Ms. Miskowski moves. Without objection. Next item, please.
Item number 62, called special by Councilmember Garcetti.
Item 62, Mr. Garcetti.
My questions have been answered, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to be heard on item 62? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Item 62 is approved.
Forthwith.
Forthwith. Next item, please.
Item number 63, called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Councilmember Hahn and Ms. Sikowski, item 63.
Mr. President, let me just say that I think it was appropriate for the council to hear a report. Our negotiating team with Mr. Deaton and the mayor's representative, Deputy Mayor Tim McCosker, have been in negotiations, and I thought this was the best way to get the council to get the briefing, and so I'd ask Mr. Deaton to let us know what is going on in the negotiations. This is the negotiations with LAFCO over the issues of the terms and conditions of putting a matter on the ballot, hopefully in November, on the question of Valley reorganization or secession.
Mr. President, members of the council, being joined by Mr. McCosker, we have been involved in 3 meetings so far. They've been cumulatively 10, 11 hours for the 3 meetings. We have discussed revenue, cost allocation, assets, liabilities, transition period, etc. And what is being suggested this time is that we have one more meeting a week from Thursday, this coming Thursday, and then it is being suggested that we continue the negotiations to attempt to work out a revenue, if you will, a revenue neutrality agreement between the applicants and the city. To kind of briefly let you know where we've been on the revenue items, I think there's general agreement between the applicants, both from the harbor side and from the valley side, and our side, that the revenue, given the current numbers, that we agree with the revenue. On the cost allocation numbers, we have indicated that we believe that LAFCO and their consultant in the draft document have not taken into account central services. The example that we have used is, for example, in the library system, they have allocated the positions according to branch libraries and regional libraries, but have not taken into account and left the remaining city with the cost and the burden of the central library system, i.e. cataloging and purchasing, etc. And under our interpretation of the revenue neutrality law, that is not appropriate, and that they have to do some allocation of that of those numbers. The city is currently in the process of doing as best we can to estimate how much that is, and we will report back to the negotiating session with those numbers. On liabilities and assets, on liabilities, our position has been that there needs to be certainty in how liabilities are paid off, and that the city should remain whole at the conclusion of those payments. To give you an idea, one of the certainty issues is we have several outstanding general obligation bonds. In order for those bonds to be paid off each year, this council adopts an ordinance authorizing the county to levy that tax. Without that ordinance, they can't levy the tax, and without that tax, the bonds can't be paid off. There has to be some certainty that for those properties that are no longer in the remaining city, but still are the bonds to be paid off, are counting on those funds, that there is assurance in some fashion that those dollars will be paid. We're trying to work out the mechanics of that and some fail-safe way to ensure that our bonds are made whole. On the other liabilities, our position has been that if the new city or cities did not take their fair share of all liabilities, then that becomes a revenue neutrality issue. You cannot walk away from a liability that was entered into while the city was whole and then not be responsible for it as the cities are divided into their respective positions. On assets, we have taken the position that if the remaining city, is whole, and is whole with certainty, and that there is provision to pay off those assets in some cases, but to meet the other liabilities such as workman's compensation, outstanding lawsuits, such as Rampart, et cetera, if there's a fair share worked out and a reasonable and certain method for doing that, that the subject to that agreement, that the assets for the that are in the new city, i.e. fire stations and police stations, et cetera, actually then would be transferred at that point, once the remaining city is whole, to the new city. The city attorney has, as you know, opined that they do not believe LAFCO has the power to take our assets without the permission or consent of this city, or the remaining city, and that, I think, is in line with that we would give that consent once the city is made whole and with certainty.
Including being made whole includes the payment for services that are rendered during the first full fiscal year of the new city's incorporation, and also assurances that the city is made whole and paid for any services if there were to be a service plan or a contract for services after that first full fiscal year.
Right. And highlighting, because the other issue was transition that we discussed a little bit, and the city raised the issue that under state law, a very troubling section, that in a new city, that the county, which historically has been the only agency involved in these kinds of transactions, would be responsible for the new city's services for the remainder of the fiscal year. What is LAFCO is suggesting is that would be a full fiscal year. The applicants are suggesting 6 months. But the trick to this is that under state law, the new city has 5 years in order to pay back that amount of services. When you're dealing with a relatively small city in a very large county, that's not a major factor. But in the case of either the harbor or the valley proposed cities, that is a large amount of money. In the case of the valley, those dollars that would not flow to the city, i.e. like utility users tax for power users, but taxes that would flow to the new city vis-a-vis State Board of Equalization, i.e. sales tax or property tax, the city would not be in control of some $750 million and yet on the hook to provide the services, and there would be a severe cash flow problem in that transition period, whether it was 6 months or 1 year. We've taken the position that there has to be, the city has to be made whole, and there has to be certainty to that, and within the context of state law. The county council has not opined on how that can be done. We're anticipating that opinion in short order. As it relates to the revenue neutrality agreement, we have suggested that we would sit down and try to work that out. We have taken the position that certain issues, i.e. the Department of Water and Power, the Harbor Department, the airports, are off the table. That if to proceed with those negotiations, it would not be worthwhile to proceed along only a part of this when we believe, and we believe we're on strong legal grounds, that the LAFCO has no control over the airports, the harbors, sanitation district, or sanitation provision of regional sanitation services, or the Department of Water and Power, whether it be the power system or the water system. And so that has been our position, that if they want to take those things off the table and discuss the remaining part of the city in such an agreement, that we would be open to that discussion.
Mr. Brinson.
Yes, number one, you keep saying this, Ron, but the city attorney has opined, but the county council has not opined, nor has the attorney general opined that the city, that LAFCO cannot transfer city's assets. So I think I just want to point that out. Second of all, in the question of liabilities and bonded indebtedness, I think that you're going to have difficulty in getting the LAFCO board, I'm only an alternate now, so I can only speak for myself, to include anything other than what the other party will benefit for. In other words, if there is a bond issue that benefited things strictly for the San Fernando Valley, then the city should not be responsible for any portion of that bond indebtedness, or vice versa. If there was something that was jointly utilized for both sides, then I would presume it would be a joint liability, such as a total bondholder type situation where all the city's assets were a security for the bonds. In that case, it would be probably on a pro rata, on a per capita allocation. But to say that the transfer is a sure thing, that's not. And there's a number of things here that are not a sure thing, and we're going to just have to wait and see what happens to the particular deliberations that will go on board and what is proposed to go on the ballot. And that brought another story today, which was the story of the possible continuation. Now, the possible continuation would put this in the midst of the 2003 elections, which I don't think, yeah, they would. They would. They put it in the 2003 elections for city council. Oh, no, wait a minute, unless that's a general election, it may not, it may have to be.
They would require a change in state law.
It would require a change in state law.
Which I think this city should oppose.
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen at any rate anyway. But the point is there are a lot of things for us to make these suppositions and everything else is just conjecture, because nobody knows until the courts decide what powers, or till possibly the Attorney General may make the final opinion, even above the County Council, as to what can happen with transfer of assets. And in regard to how I think the LAFCO board is going to make the decision on how liabilities and assets are divided. So for all this conjecture, unless some of these things can be decided through negotiations ahead of time, which is fine if they both sides, and then you presume that this is going to happen, but the voters will have something to say about that. So it really, so many things are up in the air at this stage of the game. For us to make definite decisions and to rest our case on it, I think are foolhardy, because we don't know all the details. We don't know what's going to transpire. We don't know what the final opinion is going to be on transfer of assets.
If I
Go ahead, Mr. Dean.
Mr. President, all I was saying is that, so the council understands the approach we're taking in negotiations, is that we do not believe that we should negotiate a settlement for these issues in which the remaining city is anything less than whole, and that there is provisions to make sure that that wholeness, if you will, is certain. That to negotiate otherwise is no need to negotiate. There is then, and that's, I think, the point we've taken is that we do not believe, I do not believe, that the remaining city should turn over assets while the new city has liabilities that were involved with the entire city when that part of the city was with the city. And there is no need, and we should not do that. We should not negotiate. We should, if we come to a settlement, then the remaining city should be whole, period.
Ms. Hahn.
So I was interested in you saying that we would like to see the proprietary departments off the table in terms of, now particularly in my neck of the woods, the petitioners are assuming that part of the Port of Los Angeles would go to the new city. And also I've heard part of the negotiations talk about an actual fee on the containers that come into the Harbor Department. in and out, and that would go as part of the revenue to the new city. So when you say the Harbor Department, we're hoping the Harbor Department is off the table, the Port of Los Angeles, would that include the assets such as actual containers that come in and out of the...
Yes, because, and the reason that in the proprietary departments in each case, for example, in the case of the Tidelands Trust, LAFCO does not have the power. I was quoted by one of the print media in town indicating that I said that it didn't matter if there was a vote. What they didn't report was that what I said is that if the issue before LAFCO is not legally before them, a vote will not have any impact. And the case in point is the Tidelands Trust. The Tidelands Trust is given to the City of Los Angeles by the state legislature. If the state legislature wanted to give it to Lancaster, I guess that would be within the power of the state legislature. If there was a new city in San Pedro/Wilmington, then the state legislature could do that. But LAFCO cannot. Cases also, we believe, in the case of the Department of Water and Power, that that involvement is a separate issue within the Constitution, and they do not have the power to put that on the ballot. And we believe also the County Council believes that. We also, the same situation with the airport with the FAA, and their solutions to that are a joint powers agreement / utility district, something like SMUD. Both of those, take the joint powers agreement, requires that the new city enter into a JPA. Well, there is no new city to enter into a JPA, so that can hardly be before us at this point. Secondly, a municipal district requires legislation. San Diego is in the process of doing it. There's special legislation for that. That would also require, however, the new city to enter into that district. There is no new city to enter into that district. So to burden the negotiations with things that we do not believe are even on the table and hold out some indication that this would in fact be resolved is a fraud.
The comment was made in the context of the request, would the city be interested in not only providing terms and conditions proposed for LAFCO, but would we use those as a framework for discussing a revenue neutrality agreement, which is contemplated under the statute but not required. And in good faith, well, we said yes, but in fact, we would not be negotiating those major assets. So that's the context of the comment.
And what happens if that's not agreed upon?
If there is not a revenue neutrality agreement, the LAFCO still has the obligation under the statute to create through its terms and conditions revenue neutrality for the city of Los Angeles.
Right.
Mr. Reyes.
Council President, members, as I'm listening to this dialogue, this discussion, what comes to my mind is issues that I've been hearing recently from the state, where you have state legislation saying that there are certain cities in our periphery who are not meeting their housing requirements. And if they don't meet those housing requirements, their transportation dollars will be jeopardized. And as I look at this notion of this new city versus the remaining city staying whole, I can't help but think about the issues of density, the lack of housing, the lack of park space, the imposition on our infrastructure when you have trucks coming and going from the port or from the airport that cross this remaining city. It should be in our radar when we start talking about imposition, wear and tear infrastructure, issues of equity, issues of park space, issues of housing, that we put that on the table as well, because we are talking about a regional issue. We are talking about issues of accountability and quality of life. And I don't understand why we should be treating certain neighborhoods more than others in terms of responsibilities and how we meet and address those kinds of concerns. And I'm just wondering, maybe it's premature because you're saying there is no new entity. So how can we even negotiate it? It's fraudulent. But still, it should be out there. We should be aware that the remaining cities should not be left holding the bag, if you will, when we have all these pressures that have evolved because of the way our real estate industry has changed our environment in the city. So again, I want to lay that out there for the record. and put it out there that we are cognizant of these inequities, and that we should start looking at formulas on how we address those kinds of concerns.
Ms. Sikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with Mr. Burnson that ultimately it will be the county council who will render an opinion, but I think it was useful, and in fact the county council invited the city attorney to give some advice, and so the city attorney has done that. Clearly the other interested parties have as well, except for one interested party. And we've been looking at the issue of debt as something that either comes from the whole or comes from one part or the other. But the debt, at this point, and much of the debt is the obligation is to the bond holders, those citizens who may or may not be residents of the city, may be residents of the state of California or elsewhere, who invested their savings in bonds with an expectation of a return. The underpinning of those bonds has been all of the assets of the city. In some cases, it's the property of the city, the entire property of the city, etc. And my question is, who represents the bondholders, and do the bondholders have a legal concern about this, or should the bondholders have a legal concern, and where is that made available?
Well, the statute actually requires LAFCO to consider the bondholders on those types of liabilities for the city and to ensure through the terms and conditions of the separation, if there's going to be one, that bondholders are protected. So regardless of what we negotiate, and clearly we would be negotiating for the same thing, LAFCO is going to have ultimately the responsibility under the statute.
Okay. The other thing I would like to raise, as we all read about yesterday's potential indication that LAFCO may be seeking state legislation to change the potential of a date from November of 2002 to 2003. There was an interesting comment by, I think it was Supervisor Yaroslavsky, raising the question about the voting turnout. Members of the council, I asked the city clerk to pull and give for us the voting turnout and show the differential between, for the last decade, November even year elections and odd year elections in the city where there is not a citywide matter on the ballot, such as a vote for mayor, a vote for city attorney, or a vote for city controller. The state November ranges of percentage turnout are as high as 67%, which is what we had last November, to 53%, to 54%. So the 50 to 60% turnout in a November statewide election. City elections in those years where we don't have a citywide matter on the ballot have been 18%, 17%, and 11%. So when we're really talking about democracy and letting the people decide, I think we've got to side with the state legislature, who said that on reorganization, those matters that go to the vote of the people should go on the highest turnout elections. The state has mandated that those be in November of the even years, and I think that that's what we must stay consistent with. Otherwise, we're talking, and just for your information, we have half of the city council districts that wouldn't even be on the ballot in 2003, so only half of the residents of the city would even have a council election up, no citywide elections, and I think not a good time at all to ask people of the city to decide this issue.
Mr. Deaton.
Just like on that issue in the discussions on the bill that eventually has become the law and which requires this date, it was the everybody involved in that process had decided on that election time because it did maximize the number of people to get involved in the process. And I think to back off at that at this stage would be highly inappropriate and not in line with the agreement that we had made on the legislation when this council adopted support position for that law.
Okay, other members wishing to be heard? Seeing none, the action before us is to receive and file this report. Please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
So ordered. Next item, please.
Item number 66.
Mr. Clerk, before we go to the next item, I'm sorry, Mr. LeBond wishes to be recognized.
Mr. President, members of council, I ask for reconsideration on item number 60.
Motion to reconsider item number 60. Anybody wishing to be heard on the motion for reconsideration? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, Please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Number 60 is now back before us. Mr. Labange.
Just wanted some clarification on this here from colleagues on the issue related to the council, related to the city controller, city attorney, and mayor, and the position that in this ballot issue that is proposed, all three executive positions are included with the council on this. Mr. Clerk, could you just clarify that for me?
The clarification was that all elected officials in the city, I believe, would fall under this.
Right. Well, I have nothing against the mayor, the city controller, or city attorney, but I was thinking that I think there should be a little bit of separation, like the executive, the governor, the president. They serve for 8 years, and I think that's a counterbalance to the executive and the legislative body. So I want to just discuss this just again, if there's others who share that opinion, as a possibility to separate that a little.
Okay. Mr. Pacheco and...
Point of order, Mr. President. I believe that Mr. Labange voted against the amendment to include those matters, so I don't believe that he has the authority to ask for reconsideration. He was not on the prevailing side. Motion on including all elected officials, he had voted against it, and so that was not the prevailing side.
Madam City Attorney?
That is correct. He did vote against it, and that matter was voted on.
All right, so I stand corrected.
Point of order.
Mr. Pacheco?
My notes indicate that Mr. Labange voted for the matter in its entirety, which included the amendment, so therefore the last vote, his final vote, he was on the prevailing side.
He was on the prevailing side for the
he's
whole item, but as part of that, he's asking for reconsideration of...
No, he reconsidered the whole matter.
I asked Mr. President the whole matter be reconsidered.
That's what he said.
Look, you can't say...
Madam City Attorney.
Then the whole matter is before the council again.
The whole matter was reconsidered, and we took a vote on reconsideration. Now, specific arguments and subject matters within the item to be discussed begin here, and who knows where it's going to go. So it is before us. Mr. Pacheco.
First of all, Mr. President and colleagues, you can't say that an amended matter is not before you if you voted against the amendment, if you finally end up voting for the entire matter. I mean, the entire matter is the final vote. So I think Mr. Labange...
It is before us, Mr. Pacheco.
is correct. Look, here's the question that Mr. Labange and others have been discussing. It's very simple. If we're trying to get our projects going and we're trying to empower the legislative branch, and as Mr. Holden has pointed out, the experience that we have seen at the state level where the musical chairs has caused all these problems with the legislative branch, then we really need to focus on what we're doing. Historically, if you look at this country and the way it's structured, the executive branch has always had a limitation, and until recently, the legislative branch was imposed term limits. And if you look at the federal level, the legislative branch does not have term limits still, but the executive branch does. So the question was, if we include the executive branch, including the other offices, the city attorney and the controller, would the debate about term limits for the city of Los Angeles and the city council all turn on the mayor's office? Would it be attacked based on the fact that the president and the governor have 2 4-year terms, and therefore why are we expanding the local executive branch to 3-year terms, and therefore undermine the whole objective and the whole goal of empowering the legislative branch? And one of the reasons that this is the right time to do this was the fact that the state had on the ballot a movement to correct the deficiencies pointed out by the 3 terms of 2-year duration on the assembly, which is the legislative branch. So I think I just don't think we fully debated the issue of the executive branch versus the legislative branch and the whole motivation of this term limits. So I would once again ask that we limit it to the council members and go in that direction.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion, sure.
Ms. Miskowski.
Members of the council, I think we did debate this, and again, my view, trying not to take sides, was that in keeping the compact with the voters, we should put on what the voters did before and expand it by one. The more we start to separate that and say, we want to expand it for us because we're different, we're legislators, we need more time, but not the others, the more we are injecting ourselves into that equation. And I don't think it's useful. I think the simplest way of going forward is do what the voters did in 1993, but add one more. It's a simple, understandable, it's not a dividing and conquer. We talk about musical chairs, we sort of have the biggest musical chair going on with our former mayor running for governor because he was termed out. And I dare say that notwithstanding whatever the views might be around this council chamber, that had the former mayor had an opportunity to run again, and he said he would have liked to have one, except for what he put on the ballot, that he very likely would have won again. And I don't think we can start looking in that sense of, that we have an agenda and need more time to fulfill it, and others who are in elected office don't. I think that, again, that's the way it was presented to the voters initially, and I think the more we start to parse it out in a different way, the more that we are putting ourselves in the spotlight on ourselves as different from everyone else, and it really should be something that goes to the voters as a whole as they originally enacted it.
Mr. Reyes.
Council President, members, I rise to support Councilmember Sikowski and her observations. Truly, we were talking about experience, making things happen. I mean, just if you look at the headlines today, our block grant situation under the previous mayor, I mean, there's issues of continuity, there's issues of being able to deliver and get our projects done. You find out why it didn't get done, a lot of the strings attached to those funds. So issues of strategy, how we build up our communities, they are still consistent. So the issue of simplicity, make things easier for our voters, I think is a significant one they're reading the ballots. Thank you.
Mr. Holden.
Mr. President, members, I don't think there's anybody in the city of Los Angeles who worked harder than I to elect the current mayor as mayor, Han. But it's not a personal matter in this at all. I happen to believe that the executive branch of government is 2 terms here, 2 terms in Sacramento, and 2 terms in Washington. For those who are the vice presidents, 2 terms as well. Therefore, the city attorney is elected citywide, and the city controller. What you're asking the voters to decide is not really going to have a plebiscite on how well the mayor and others are doing citywide, and that's not what it's all about, and it should be that. They want to take the position, well, if we want to elect them for another term, we'll do that. But not in advance decide that we want to consider 3 terms. I think that if you can have any change at all, for the good of the city, for good of public policy, your best option would be to let up or down on the council. Let the voters decide whether or not they want to give the council additional time, and leave it at that. To crowd it or to weight it down with the press and the public making a decision at the time they vote on this matter in March, whether or not the mayor is doing the job to their satisfaction, whether or not who else is going to run for mayor, whether or not the city attorney is doing a good job or not, or the city controller, who's planning and who's waiting in line to run for city controller. You're going to have a real problem. So I would say that even though I'm not satisfied that you didn't put all the matters before the voters, but just this one didn't please me at all, because the voters can make the decision, they're smart, if they want 4 terms or no terms or 3 terms. So, but hey, you get what you get. And I think that deeming it just on the council is enough. And I'm going to support the motion as amended.
Other members wishing to be heard? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, the motion before us.
There's a motion on the desk, Mr. Pacheco and Labange, to limit to council members only.
Everybody clear on that? So a yes vote would limit the term limit measure to be placed on the ballot to apply only to members of the council and not to the citywide officers.
Call it to the legislative body and separated by the executive body. I don't want to see it a council situation, but I'm trying to match the image of what the legislature in Sacramento to the executive branch with the controller. And Mr. Clerk, speaking of state issues, are they 2 terms for the governor and the executive level, statewide office, attorney general, et cetera? Right, so it would be matching that. Executive, legislative.
Okay. Mr. Alpern, did you wish to add anything here?
You've already instructed us to put a retroactivity provision in with regard to the members of the council. The question is, do you want the same retroactivity with regard to the citywide officials, or do you want some other retroactivity with regard to the citywide officials? Do you want that to go back as far as it goes, or do you want that to go back to 1993?
Well, let's determine first whether citywide officials will be included in this or not. Mr. Zine?
Mr. President, colleagues, just a point of clarification. The state senate is 8 years. Legislators 6 years, governors 8 years, and the Senate is a legislative body, not an executive body. But you have a state Senate that's 8 years, a governor that's 8 years. My focus on here, people, when they passed this term limit in Los Angeles, it was for everyone. The mayor, the controller, the council, the city, all of us. They put us all in the same political hoop and said, we want term limits, 2 terms for all of you. And they didn't want to separate the legislative from the executive. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Once again, the matter before us will be a yes vote will deem that the matter only applies to this body. A no vote will continue to include all city officers. Is that clear? Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
5 ayes, 7 noes.
Okay.
That failed.
Motion fails. So it continues to apply only to all city officials?
No, that's not correct. It did not fail to get a majority for either one.
Okay.
So the matter would continue to the next council meeting if
Unless
there
you
is
take-
another.
This was an amendment that we voted on.
I move we reaffirm the matter as we had previously sent it, including everybody.
Okay. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 2 noes.
Once again, that is approved. Forthwith. Next item, please.
Item number 66, called Special by Councilmember Hahn.
Item 66 before us, Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, members of the council. Mr. President, this was a motion that I introduced on Friday asking the CLA and the CAO to report back to us on the governor's proposed budget cuts that would impact local government. And I must say, I immediately want to commend the CAO, the CLA for looking at this, getting back to us quickly. I've read the report. You did a good job of identifying how the proposed budget cuts would impact us locally. If any of the council members have had an opportunity to read it, we talk about losing money for our trauma centers. There is money that will be lost for the LA River project. There is money that will be lost for some of our parks, particularly one near and dear to my heart is the Ken Malloy Park in Harbor City, Harbor Gateway, that has had this money targeted for major environmental improvements. Clearly, what we're talking about in terms of affordable housing, the Housing Trust Fund will be impacted by this. It was a very thorough report, and I want to make sure that we're all paying attention to this, and that when we hear their report to us today, that we immediately begin communicating this to our constituents, to our chambers of commerce, to our neighborhood councils, to our homeowner groups, to our schools, to everybody that is really going to be impacted by this, and hopefully we'll be able to really lobby the governor and the state legislature to not balance the state budget on the backs of local government, and particularly at this time in our economy locally. I don't think we can afford these cuts. I think there's other places to do this, so I just really want to commend you for getting back to such a good report on this.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Ms. Galanter?
Sorry, I didn't.
Any other members wishing to speak? Mr. Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of questions in the report. Clearly, the element that comes across as most significant is the VLF. And I know we're talking about that, but of particular concern that I wanted to raise is our recreation and parks projects. I don't know what the total dollar figure is, but I think the fact that they're on the table points to an internal challenge that we're having in the city. Now, the nature of some of the monies that the state has budgeted for our recreation and parks projects, a certain amount of it has already been drawn down by the city and is not at risk. A certain amount of it has not been drawn down yet by the city and is at risk. So do we have those numbers as to what has been drawn down, what hasn't been drawn down? Because my understanding is of the amount that has not been drawn down, the reasons for that point back to workload and project management within a Department of Recreation and Parks, and specifically whether or not environmental documents have been completed, certain applications have been completed, and I want to pursue that and discuss that a little bit here before we go further. And if you could hold my time.
According to record, we don't have a figure for the amount that has been drawn down, and we'll get back to you on that. But essentially, the problem with Debs Park, Ken Malloy Park, and the Police and Firefighter Memorial is that MOUs or agreements have not been entered into, so the money hasn't been encumbered. Rec and Parks looked at their projects and identified these three as those that do not have money tied up, so they're likely to lose it. There is some question about the $30 million in local district projects. Even the state is not real clear on exactly which projects those entail, so we're continuing to look at those. But at this point, it looks like it is just those three projects that are in danger.
Okay, and possibly more. They're still reviewing the list of projects, and I understand the state has to make their determination which projects to cut the funding off on and which ones to allow to proceed. But my question is, some of these projects are not new projects, and if they've been in the process as far as the city is concerned for some time now, why have the contracts not been written? Why have we not done what we needed to do, draw down all that money? And what can we do over the next couple of days to prevent it from being taken away?
Well, I think we need to have a separate report on that. We ask that we meet with the department and come back to you shortly. Tomorrow may be too soon, but the first meeting
when is the governor and the legislature making a decision on which projects to ask?
We know they're in the process right now to look at
as we speak. So tomorrow may be too soon in your eyes, but it's not too soon for the life of these projects. So I will move that we request a report from the CAO, the CLA, and Recreation and Parks on this particular issue at tomorrow's council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. We have a motion before us. Any other members wishing to speak? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, if you open up the rolls. Close the rolls. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Thank you. The item is approved. Mr. President.
Good job, Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
Items numbers 64 and 65 are closed session items.
Okay. Go ahead. Mr. D.
Relative to the advertising issue? Right. I would like to suggest that we separate those issues in public session. The lawsuit one part of it should go to executive session, and the contract, which is in my office, that issue should be referred to my office. We will be reporting back to council on that contract probably tomorrow or the next week. And that way, I think these are two issues that should not be coupled, and we should decouple them today.
That's correct. These are two separate issues.
Okay, members, everybody clear on that? Item 64 has two components, a contractual issue and a litigation issue. The litigation will be heard and discussed in closed session. The contractual issue won't need to be. Anything before we go into closed session, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. President.
Mr. Pacheco?
See, that's what happens when you hit your button. Simply want to make the motion to decouple them because I know Mr. Deedon, commonly referred to as the 16th council member, still doesn't have the power to make a motion. So can I just officially move to decouple the two items and only deal with the litigation issue in closed session and instruct CLA to move forward on the contractual issues?
Mr. Reyes?
Totally different matter. I'll wait for this vote.
Okay. Other members wishing to speak on the issue of decoupling? Please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Issues are now decoupled. Mr. Reyes?
That plum will be held at 2:30 instead of 2.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Also, excuse me, Mr. Chair, on item 65, it is a settlement where the city is accepting $100,000. If we don't, if the council has no questions about that, we could vote on that in open session.
Okay, shall we go ahead and proceed with that now? Members, without objection, let's take item 65 in open session. You've all read the report. We have a recommendation to accept settlement. Anybody wishing to be heard? Seeing none. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Anything else prior to going into closed session?
Motions for posting and referral.
Those motions are posted and referred.
Now it's time for public comment on non-agenda items.
Public comment, an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on items within our jurisdiction but not appearing on today's agenda. The council calls forward Mr. Rich Reed.
Thank you. I'd like to mention just 3 bits of progress since the last time I addressed the council on November 2. After I left the council, I met by chance Mayor Hahn outside and talked with him briefly. I had met him only once before at an education conference at Occidental College several months ago. He doesn't seem afraid of the idea of getting some of the results that I've proposed. That doesn't mean he understands and supports what I'm doing, but at least he doesn't seem afraid of thinking outside the box. He doesn't seem afraid of the idea of having 90% of 7-year-olds who could read Shakespeare or look at Beethoven symphony scores and read the pictures of the notes. So that's progress over the previous 2 mayors, we can hope. He referred me to Barbara Sandoval, who will become, I think, Deputy Mayor for Education. I've talked with her briefly and mailed her a few papers, and she said she will meet with me after she takes office. Second item, as you know, there were media moguls meeting with Karl Rove of the White House here in Los Angeles about a week and a half ago. And I talked on the phone with Jack Valenti, president of the Motion Pictures Association of America. He knows Italian and likes opera, and he has my papers back at his office. He said he would look at my stuff, so that might lead to something. As I had suggested before, imagine if Hollywood would get actively interested in, for example, making screenplays, making whatever appears on television available in phonetic spelling, perhaps with closed captioning for television. And the third and last item, as you know, President Putin of Russia visited the United States and, among other things, was in a joint appearance with President Bush at Crawford High School in Texas. I have not talked with President Putin, but I did talk last year with Ambassador Yuri Ushakov, who got my papers back at the embassy, and I've sent a similar packet with updated material to the embassy then to pass on to President Putin. I suggested, among other things, a friendly competition between the two presidents for getting some of these wild results, like 90% of 7-year-olds who could read the pitches in Rachmaninoff piano concertos. I'd suggest a more local competition, perhaps Moscow versus Los Angeles, to get such results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reed. This concludes the public comment period for today's meeting. Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
Council members' requests from excuse from council attendance. Councilmember Galante requests to be excused on Wednesday, November 21st for personal business. This meets policy.
Ms. Galante is excused.
The item before you is now 64 as divided. The closed session portion is now before you.
Okay. If there's no other business to be done with, in conformance with California law, the council will adjourn into closed session. I ask the guards to please clear the chambers. Back into open session. Mr. Clerk, item before us, please.
Item number 64, there's a motion to continue 1 week until November 27th, the attorney fee issue.
Okay. Please open the roll on continuance of item 64. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
The desk is clear.
Any adjourning motions? Please stand. Ms. Galanter.
To ask that we adjourn in memory of Mrs. Tilda Epstein. She was the mother of Jerry Epstein, who many of you know, former president of the Airport Commission, a member of the High-Speed Rail Authority, and a number of other city involvements and state involvements. Mrs. Epstein died of natural causes at the age of 102.
I second that.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to request that we adjourn our meeting today in honor of the memory of Mr. Edward Copeland, a longtime San Pedro resident who passed away 2 Sundays ago after an unfortunate accident. Mr. Copeland leaves behind his wife of 56 years, Doris, 4 sisters, 1 brother, 4 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. He is also survived by beloved daughters, Jane Copeland, and my friend, Carolyn Brownell, who works with the San Pedro Chamber of Commerce. She's worked there for 24 years. Mr. Copeland served in World War II, rising to the rank of sergeant, and then worked as a truck driver, living in San Pedro with his family until 1985. This is what's so sad. Mr. Copeland suffered his fatal injuries when he fell taking down his American flag from the front of his home. He always observed proper flag etiquette, putting his flag up every morning and taking it down every night. Mr. President and members, I ask you to join me in recognizing the memory of Mr. Doyle Clay.
Any others? Colleagues, a request that you join me in adjourning in memory of James Graham. Born in 1947 here in the city of Los Angeles, was a lifelong resident of the San Fernando Valley for the last 24 years. Most notably known as a barber at the House of Styles for the past 15 years, and was the owner for the last 3 years. And I believe it's safe to say he was not just a barber, he was also the confidant, the mentor, the advisor, the newsman, the comic, and certainly a friend to all who frequented the establishment. Mr. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. And colleagues, as we leave, let me make a brief announcement. As we have approved various ballot measures for the March election, letters will be circulated this afternoon regarding ballot arguments. So I'll call your attention to those, and we'll take care of that business next week.